with the dollar.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, October 19th, 2010 edition of the Goffstown Budget Committee. I've been told that not only tonight are we streaming live over your televisions, but also through the internet with a 4-second delay. Pretty cool. So hopefully that all works.
Profane language possibly?
Say that again? Oh, well, it's, okay, you know what? We're gonna start the roll, and we're gonna start with Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Scott Gross.
Okay, we'll keep going down towards Paul.
Paul Everett.
Sue Tremblay.
Richard Fletcher.
John Dillon.
Bill Gordon.
Kathy Samard.
Christy Garrison.
Dan Cloutier.
John Burt.
And Guy Karen.
Thank you all. We have the following individuals who have indicated they would either not be able to attend or maybe a little late. Ivan Beliveau, John Heichel, Jen Getchell, and Bill Hart. Bill Bates was going to try to call via electronically, but that hasn't occurred yet, so they are all excused, and that makes a total of 16, 11 of us which are here to vote. Let's turn to the meeting minutes of June 15th, if you would, please. And once you get there, let me know.
I have a question on page 2.
Can I have a motion to put it to the floor? Can I have a motion for the June 15th?
So moved.
Who was that? John?
Second.
Bill.
Bill moved it? Who seconded?
I will.
John. John Burt. Okay. Are there any modifications, changes? It's a long report.
On page 9?
Yep.
Top of the page. Where the number comes from, it represents 3.5 reductions, I'm assuming that's million reductions in school, and 1.9 in town, and 4.5 million from school. I don't understand that.
Scott, do you remember? This is what you said. It's written that you said. Do you happen to have the minutes in front of you?
No, I'm just looking them up.
Okay.
I trust Joanne, whatever she writes. So,
Well, that makes sense, because he's talking about 10%. If
Yeah.
10% of 35 million would be 3.5 million, 10% of 19 million would be 1.9 million, so.
It's the next one. It's where it says 4.5 that it doesn't add
Well,
up.
maybe we just add those two up and then we say total.
Well, that would be closer to 5.4.
4.59.
Wanna go there?
Darn. We do numbers. 4.5 million from the school to make that goal. That could be Mr., let's see what we got. Yes?
Yes, sir. Bill Bates calling.
It is Bill Bates. Well, Mr. Bates has arrived, and before I can let you attend electronically, we're gonna have to do a couple of little tests.
Okay.
You have to tell me if you can tell who speaks.
Hello, Bill.
Could you hear that, Bill?
Whoa.
Could you hear it?
Have that person call again, or say again.
Hi, Bill.
Is the microphone there? See, one of the things we have to do, RSA 91A says we can do this, but you're gonna have, in order to participate, you're gonna have to hear all of our conversations, and we have to hear you. We can hear you. Can you all hear him? I've got the microphone down there,
It's on.
and you can hear him, okay. Anybody else speak? Dick, say something.
Hello, Bill.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay.
Hello,
but-
Bill.
After 1/2 mile, right,
Please
Interstate
insert.
470.
You have a very interesting voice, Bill.
Yeah, I'm getting one heck of a serious information. I'm gonna call right.
Okay, we'll try it again, but if you can't hear all the members, we might not be able to make this work. But-
Okay, understood.
Officially. But you could probably hear. Now, we're also streaming. Oh, boy, that's pretty good. Over the internet.
North Philadelphia.
Wow.
Using Skype.
Okay, give me a call back.
After 1.
Okay, I don't know what you want to do with that number, Sue.
I'm just changing
To what?
to whatever it's supposed to be, 5.4. The numbers could be transposed. 4.5 to 5.4.
I'm fine with that.
You're okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
5.4. You got that, Joanne?
I mean, math
Okay.
is not my strong point, but I didn't think I was that far off.
No, but Scott said it, so I wanted to make sure. Okay, anything else? from anybody?
Well, page 8,
Yep.
third paragraph down, Bill Bates. It just should say this should direct the ship.
And Mr. Bates just left the phone, and you remember it saying, this should direct the ship and direct management accordingly, and that's what Bill Bates said.
It just clarifies the sentence, I think, instead of it saying Bill Bates should direct the ship.
Because Bill Bates probably wouldn't have said that, but Bill Bates is saying, this should probably, is that what you're indicating?
Yeah.
So why don't we leave the Bill Bates in there and add, Bill Bates said this should. Does that work?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. You got that, Joanne? Okay. Others? We also have a DVD for posterity. Okay, seeing no other further changes, those in favor of the minutes as amended signify by raising your hand, please. And that is unanimous, that's 11-0-0. And we segue to the minutes of September 21. Oh, I printed them again, pretty cool. 11-0-0. I have a motion to put on the floor,
So moved.
and who was that? Sue, okay. I'm having directional listening problems this evening.
I'll second it again.
And Bill seconds it, Bill Bates.
John Burt.
How about John Burt?
There's Bill Bates.
There's Bill Bates.
Speaking of,
Bill Bates?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Bill, who is this?
Could you hear someone ask you who this is?
I heard
Something.
what they said.
They said.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Christie.
Yeah, well, he got Christie. He got Christie
Hi,
down.
Bill.
Bill, can you hear this?
He's new, he might not know everyone's name.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. He might
Well,
not.
it's okay, if he can just repeat what somebody said. And the way things go here, if more than one of us talk at once, it's gonna get collapsed. And it may not be. Now, if Bill wants to stay on and listen, I don't have a problem. But if he can't hear, he won't be able to vote and participate in the meeting, so to speak, as voting. Okay?
Bill, can you hear me say this? If you can, say something.
Nope.
Yeah, I think it's not gonna work, Bill, only because we had a request and you couldn't respond to it because you couldn't hear. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay, there you are.
I heard him. I heard
There you go.
a faraway mumble, but like,
Right. And that just might be our technology where the speakers, the microphone isn't attached to a speaker. And the microphone is facing me. And that's because it's part of my laptop. So I'm not intended to turn that around at the moment.
Is he using Skype?
I don't know. Why?
Because I've dialed in a number of times and never had any problem, but I was usually dialed into another Verizon phone.
Okay,
And I
right.
think you had the microphones near the, I had no problems at all.
Okay. And it might just be because of that, that meeting. All right, so what is your pleasure? Do you want to continue to listen to us? Or do you want to go on the internet and, listen there?
I mean, there's a terrible reverberation, and that, I think that's the, it's over internet phone. It's working fine all day. So I guess I'll drop off. I just want you to know I was trying. The other thing is, Dan, that I really intend to be there all day meeting on Saturday.
Okay, and it's gonna start at what time, Scott?
We'll go 9.
We're going 9 o'clock instead, 9 o'clock on Saturday. And it'll be 9 o'clock when we meet with the school as well. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you. It was a good try.
do that.
Take care.
Okay, he's gone. Back to the minutes of September 21. Adjustments, modifications, corrections. Sue, you had something on page?
Yeah, I had on page 4, just a question. 4 from the bottom, Scott Gross advised that the meeting may be at another location. I didn't know what that was all
It's
about.
here.
Yeah, he did mention it, but I think,
We talked about it last night. It's gonna be here. We're gonna try to get some tables in here so that it's,
Get any?
what?
Do you have any?
Yeah, between police and DPW, we're gonna get some tables in here.
Because I had some, so that's why I asked.
okay, so we'll let that kind of stand, but at the moment, it's still here.
And I also had on page 5.
Yep.
Easy to pick out, that's Tremblay. In that paragraph, talk about the, Abington Square kids. At last meeting, we had 12 involved, and I really think we should put in there that we have, several ESL students out of that number.
Is that something we talked about that night?
Yes, it is, I've reported that.
Okay.
I remember that.
So what do you want it to say?
12 involved, many ESL,
Many of them ESL.
right.
Yes, I remember that. Okay, maybe not in that sentence, but English as a second language, okay. Further corrections, modifications? Cool, seeing none, let's go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of the minutes as amended, please signify by raising your hand. And opposed and abstaining. And Dick, how do you want to vote? Yes, no, or maybe? Yes? That's, it's 11-0-0. All right, now let's turn to, I'm gonna do a couple of things. Did you get a response from the DRA, Scott, on the tax rate setting?
Yes.
Has it been officialized?
No.
It's not official.
Right.
Okay, I will segue there after. At this moment, we have attendees in the audience. Does anyone wish to make a public comment? If you could mind, come right over to where the microphone is kind of hanging from the ceiling. It's
Okay.
towards us. And that way, the TV and the internet can pick you up, and we can hear you too. If you can tell us who you are, and you are a Goffstown resident.
That's right. My name is Earl Weinberg. I live on Center Street, 103 Center Street near the Grange. And I'm here to talk about why I don't want the property tax to go up. Because, well, I've been out of work for a year. I just recently got employed again, and we have debts, and if the tax goes up as much as projected, this is going to be a major hit to us, and it's going to take us a lot longer to climb our way out of the hole we're in. And that's basically it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Come on up. Microphone.
Hi, I'm Kate Yaris, and I live in Goffstown on Reed Street, and I'm just here as a concerned parent. We moved to Goffstown 4 years ago, and when we were looking around at different towns, we really had heard a lot of good things about the schools here. And so I'm just concerned about, how things are looking for the schools and for our children. So, that's all.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, we'll close that segment of public comment. And is there anybody who wants to bring anything up on old business, but not necessarily in-depth budget discussions yet? I want to do the town and the school and the village district reports. Bill?
I'm not sure if this fits in old business or not, but last year I had asked for a dictionary or a list of the acronyms, particularly that the school uses, because I find it very, very difficult to follow discussions on the budget when somebody's saying ESL or something like that. I mean, I've had 17 different ESLs in my life. It's just quite difficult. Thank you.
You're welcome, and we may quiz you.
About all 17, I'll tell you about them all in detail.
One of the items that we can do is as we start to discuss something, group, before putting a glossary together, so to speak, or an acronym file or something, if we do throw some of those out, if we can try to pause and hesitate and give the whole, what the name is, at least we'll get it in our minutes, and I can ask that Joanne put the letters and then what it means, so that we'll have something, we can start something, and then Bill might be able to read through that and create it for us. Be the man. No, that'll work. One of the
Somehow we'll
things
get there.
that, Sue, that I'm gonna probably ask for, and Scott ask for, is what we normally get from the school is a list of all personnel, the positions, the incumbents, and their projections for the ensuing budgets, which is salaries and taxes and retirement, but only the total for the health insurance, because of the HIPAA rules. Because they show up anywhere in the budget and subtotals. But I'm looking for that, and if you have that for Saturday, that would be great, and I will attempt to follow up with an email. So by the time we get there, if we can get it in advance. Do you know, Sue, if we're going to get an electronic portion of the budget of what the principals are presenting, or presented last night and presented Wednesday? Did you have a electronic version that you could peruse through? You don't have one?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did you get anything on paper?
Oh, yeah, we got our budgets.
I wonder if it would be available electronically for us to begin. And we have some new members, and they would probably,
Well, that's gonna be available on the 5th
of,
November,
oh, okay,
which is
okay.
a
Numbers,
week.
That's a week before we meet with you, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
on,
good.
hopefully that's enough time. See, sometimes it takes a little longer than that, depending on what's happening, whether it's gonna be or not. I sent out copies of the initial department head submission of the town to the selectmen, so that you guys
Yeah,
can
that was-
begin.
it was-
Unfortunately, I sent what I got. I haven't had time yet, because it's still been a very busy summer for me and my day job. Because I usually take all of that and put it in a spreadsheet, and I send that all out with tax stuff and ramifications. I haven't got a chance, and I doubt if I'm gonna have a chance in the next few weeks to get it done. But I'll try.
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Burt? Got it right this time.
Yes, thank you. I did see the budget last night from the school.
Yes.
It's about that thick.
Oh, yeah.
It's
yeah.
pretty
Oh,
thick.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
little.
Same old, same old.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's all light item, so,
So hopefully a week will give us time to.
And the paper was
zip
10%
through it.
thinner.
okay. Here we go. What else do I have? Before I go into the town and the other reports, it's kinda like old business, new business, but we'll do it anyway. Tax rate setting. You wanna talk about any of that, even though it's not official? We did have a, kinda like a pseudo-public meeting to set the preliminary tax rate.
Just trying to multitask and get that email off and those sound rates, but that'll
Okay.
work.
I have the numbers.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Okay.
So far preliminarily, and it just has to be, deemed official, but here are the breakdown of the tax rate. The town tax rate will be $8.95. School tax rate, $10.57. State school rate, $2.30. County rate is $1.09. And the total rate will be $22.91, which is, yeah.
The third one? The state school?
State, yeah, it's a, state school rate. There's a
Okay.
local school rate and there's a state school
Right.
rate. The
How much
local
is
is
it?
$10.57 and the state is, $2.30.
230, okay, thanks.
$12.87 combined.
Okay. That represents a total rate of $22.91. and I believe that's $1.24 higher than the previous year.
Right, the school was estimated to be over $3, I think, and it came to, what, dollar something?
I don't know.
Okay, the school wasn't as high, there was some revenue that came in,
Yeah, considerable.
Yeah.
that brought down some stuff, and it was the estimated, and from what I
It
was told,
It was gonna be over
Ray.
$3
Yes.
total, and
It was.
it'll be $1.24,
right,
at the end.
right, and this is really for Earl, who had made the comment earlier. The budget that gets voted on in March of next year affects the tax rate of the bills going out in December of 2011. It's what budget got passed last March in the last ending of the fiscal years that affects the tax rate currently, so, that's where it is here. Any questions on that?
Well, what was the increase, the overall increase?
I have it as $1.24 per thousand.
Thank you.
I think the town was only like 9 cents or 7 cents or something like that, the difference.
What was the town?
Wasn't much.
The town was $1, was $8.95.
$8.95, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I,
Do
okay,
you-
Christie.
Do you have the breakdown by the 4 different ones?
Yeah, I'll give it to you again.
Well-
Town, $8.95,
I have those. Do you
Oh.
have?
what it was last year.
I'll tell you what,
I
if you
don't-
hang on a second, I'll bring up my Excel spreadsheet
Thank you.
from last year, and I think I'll have it for you. Go ahead, Christie.
So the $1.24 higher, is that higher than the last vote we had in March that we're gonna receive in December of this year?
Yes.
Exactly.
Alright.
So we haven't received that 14% higher. In December, it goes
It
up
won't be
14%.
14%. No.
No, I mean from the last March vote.
No,
Oh.
no. What, the actions that we took, and if I'm speaking out of school, then Dan shut me down,
Go
but
ahead.
the actions that we took were all based upon predicated revenues, et cetera, and based upon what we knew last year, the community voted, and it would have been about $3 and change for a tax increase. However, due to unanticipated revenue on the school side predominantly, that's not going to happen, it's gonna be much less. So that's good news. So now when the tax rate is set, it will be $1.24 increase. So for many folks, it's gonna go up, but it's not gonna go up nearly as much as it would have gone up if the school didn't get another, another infusion, if I'm not mistaken. Because that's the lion's share of it,
Well,
over $2 million was.
Yeah, 1.2 million came out
Okay.
of the budget.
Yeah.
And the rest came out of ARA funds,
Right.
which we won't probably see again.
Nope.
I believe the town was 868 last time, and it's
Yes.
895,
$8.95.
so that's 27 cents. That's an increase of 27 cents. And the school, I'll do a combined, because the school, I think the state went from like 240 or something down to 230, because that has to do with, school and town tax rate last year was 14, no, it can't be 1432, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, it does.
We should be down.
It can't be 1287 from 1432, that doesn't make sense. I'm looking at my old spreadsheets. Local, that's it. It was 1191.
That was combined?
950 plus 241, for a total of 1191. So that's 96 cents?
1291?
1287, from 1191 to 1287. And that 1287, by the way, is still not been officially stamped by the Department of Revenue. They're the ones that calculated it here, but they have to go back and everybody needs to review it and sign off and put the rubber stamp on it. The local school rate went from $9.50 to $10.57, and the state rate went from $2.41 down to $2.30. I don't like looking at them individually necessarily because of that. It's a shuffling of a pea pod more than anything else between the two of those. Doesn't matter, it's all coming out of our pockets.
And what was the county last year?
Don't know. I don't have that with me.
Okay.
What you gotta imagine is the difference. So if we did a little quick math, we'd be all right. And I'm not gonna do that.
So I think, one more thing is, and I have to double check this, but I think for many people, obviously it's good that it's not as high as what was anticipated. For majority of folks, this year's tax rate will be higher than last year, but it will be slightly lower than the year before.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have all of those numbers, but
Provided you did not have a change in you put an addition on your house, or you had
right, the reval or something like that. The tax rate is hard to take a peek at when we had revaluations in the value of your home, so you really, the adjusted tax rate, it would be something that we could look at. It's what you pay for a bill.
Yeah.
That's gonna really, where the rubber meets the road. I've had a couple of people that have spoken to me and made comments like, the direction you're going or whatever, this 10% cut that you've made, I gotta let everybody know, we haven't done anything yet. It's not as if the Budget Committee has made any decisions. The only decision the Budget Committee did in June was to ask the governing bodies to present what the effects of a 10% reduction from current appropriations would be. Okay, so nothing official has happened yet. So, in the process, there's still time and we're still working at it. And we haven't actually been officially given haven't been given anything from the governing boards yet, so we'll see what happens when they get here. Any other quick comments before we go into the town side reports?
County's $1.10.
Excuse me?
The county number you wanted was $1.10.
Okay, so it went from $1.10 down to $1.09.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, I'll call that even. Hey, Guy, you wanna talk about police department?
Sure.
Yes, you do, I know you do.
Well, it's an interesting segue since we're talking about the effects of 10%. On Wednesday night last week, the police department made a presentation to the Board of Selectmen on what the effects of a level funded budget would be and what the effects of a 10% reduction would be. Here's that report. I will send it to all of you when this is over. If you go to page 3 of this, I'll just read you what some of the more interesting items would be.
Yes, sir.
I thought we were gonna do the reports and not talk about the budgets later.
This is a report on the police, his
The current
budget
budget.
presentation.
No, I'm talking about what the police is
Okay,
doing with their
well,
current
Mr.
budget.
Chairman,
Well,
what do you wanna
let's do this. Let's talk about how we're doing with current budget expenditures, and then we'll segue to actual budget discussion. That kind of falls
Okay.
into the new budget. And if we have anything on the old budget, like the budget current year we're in now, that'd be kind of cool.
All right, my discussions with the chief over the last couple of meetings with him have centered on this and not the current budget. He's in the midst of negotiations with two,
Labor.
yeah, he's got a new one this year. It's the dispatchers. But primarily, like I said, our discussions have been based on what's coming up.
Okay,
So that would be my report then.
okay.
Is that what everybody's doing? 'Cause
It-
I thought we were oversight the current budget.
One of the differences, Sue, is the school being on a fiscal
I
year.
understand
It's
that,
just
but
kind of
Still
started.
doing with this,
But that's what we're gonna talk about, is
Current
the
budget.
current budget, yes.
so
We're gonna wait. We're gonna come up to that in a few minutes.
come up to what?
The budget talk about what's happening after we finish the
Okay,
the
so,
local
so
reports.
basically, we're, Guy's saying he hasn't checked on the current budget. He's just been focused on the upcoming one.
That's what the chief and I have been
Okay.
discussing is the upcoming budget.
All
We
right.
haven't been discussing the current.
Other than during their negotiations with the two bargaining units?
Yes, he anticipates some good news, but I don't know what that is yet.
Okay.
God love him.
And that which is, if you think about it,
I don't know what it is
what's
yet.
good, what's not good, I mean, one's person good could not be another person good, okay.
Maybe Santa's coming.
Hey, Christie, you wanna talk about fire department?
Yep, I met with the chief, on Friday. We did discuss next year's budget too. We talked about Engine 5, and originally, Engine 5, they were not gonna repair, but, I think they looked at the option of putting about $170,000 into Engine 5 to get that up and running, and that could possibly last us 5 to 10 years.
How much again?
5 to 10 years?
170,000
Into engine 5,
into Engine 5.
to get 5 to 10 years.
I just, okay.
Yeah, do you
I
have
mean,
anything
that
further
was just
on
an
that
option.
fire engine?
I'm not making it up.
Right. Okay, anything further on the fire and engine 5?
No, they looked at
Because-
if that was an option, what it would cost,
Okay.
what it needs to be certified,
Okay.
to get it back on the road and get it running. He didn't say that they were gonna do that, that was just an option.
Okay. Scott?
I just, a lot of these discussions have been had at the Board of Selectmen level, and decisions are being made, which it seems like you're gonna hear on Saturday, and it just seems like we can go through all those things,
Okay.
but you're gonna hear it again
Yep.
Saturday.
Okay, that's
So
fine for that one. Do you have something to add, Guy, or?
Just a question, Christie, maybe you can take to the chief before Saturday. I think it was May 20 or May 21st, Board of Selectmen meeting, the chief came in and asked permission to spend between 20 and 30,000 from you guys to fix Engine 5. The permission was granted, and he subsequently parked Engine 5 up at Station 17 and has been there since. If you can find out why he didn't fix Engine 5 and took it out of service, I'd like to know before Saturday, or by Saturday.
You do have to take it out of service to fix it.
We did briefly
But
talk
it
about
hasn't
that.
been repaired, is
Yeah.
my point.
Okay, well, the question I would relate is, what's the status of engine 5 is really where it's going.
It's
I mean,
out of service.
I already know the status of Engine 5. I want to know why, when he was granted permission in May to spend 30,000 to replace the pump and fix it, why that wasn't done? And why was the truck taken out of service instead? Because that truck would be in service today if the pump had been replaced, as was authorized.
If the garage is available to take it is where I'm coming from. Is it on
Oh.
a path, that's where I'm saying, is it scheduled
You're
to
presuming
go
that
and?
they-
I'm not I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to see where the status is and where is it going? Is it just gonna be parked there, or are we waiting for something else to happen?
Where's
That's-
the repair status? What's the
Well-
status on the repair is what I want to know.
From what I could gather, I don't think it was authorized from the Board of Selectmen to be repaired.
It was.
It was
watched the
between
meeting.
$50,000 and $60,000 for repairs, and it was too costly, because once they went in there was other things that
Right, there,
needed.
it was, again, I'm just trying to refresh my own memory here, but it was authorized by the board. I believe subsequent to that, there was other issues that were found with it, and then it was,
Okay.
wait a second, do you wanna
Okay.
go
You
and
really
sink
wanna do
more?
that.
Because there was something with,
Okay.
there was the pump itself, and then there was some other issues along with it,
Okay.
and that's where we've kinda left it off.
Plus, it's
most
20 years
recently.
old.
Yeah, 18 or 19, it's around that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my
Yeah.
answer. Thank you.
You can continue, Christie.
Dick's got a hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
So engine 5 is how old?
18 to 20 years old.
It's in 1992.
18 years old or is it 20 years?
It's 1992.
18, okay. And what's wrong with it?
The
Broken.
pump is busted, and I'm,
Does anybody know what's busted on the pump?
Just for a second, let me ask Scott again, are we gonna talk about this
Yes.
Saturday?
Yes.
We're gonna
That's
have a
my
long
point.
discussion about it on
Okay.
Saturday, so if we can
Okay.
hold off on that one, that'd
And
be
this-
great.
Yeah, I just wanna, You're gonna have this, we're gonna have the same discussions as we did last year about that fire engine. You're gonna
Okay.
have a discussion about the solid waste vehicle and about the dump truck. So everything, we can have these all night long, but that's what we spent about an hour or two discussing last night, and I'm sure that'll be more discussion here.
I'm just trying to convey the
Not a problem.
information
Sure, go ahead.
that I gathered.
Aren't you great?
Um,
There you go. Keep going, please.
That was, we just talked about the budget. He's trying very hard to come in with a level-funded budget.
Okay.
We talked about, engine one also, and I think he's gonna present the options on Saturday.
Further questions for Christie and the fire department? Seeing none, we're gonna segue over to Mr. Paul Agros. My apologies for the agenda again. I might even get it right once.
That's all right.
So, anything on the library?
Yeah, well, I was able to get to 2 of the trustee meetings, and we did, of course, as everyone else apparently did, focus primarily on the upcoming budget. But just an overview for perspective, the 2010 library budget of $664,000 represented about 2.5% of the town's budget, and some statistics. Total program attendance was down 36%, largely due to reduction in staff hours. Total card holders is up 11%, door count and circulation up 7%. And I asked if they had any particular messages to convey to the budget committee, and they said that Jen said she was speaking on behalf of the Board of Trustees, saying that they hope that in making budget determinations that the budget committee be cognizant of, I'm just paraphrasing, of what they perceive to be the increasingly vital social role of the library in the town. And that is all that I had.
So I think what I heard you say is even though the programs they run might be down, the actually head count visiting the library and who have library cards is up.
Yes, and I asked for context from Diane as to why the program attendance numbers were down. And like I said, she explained that that was largely due to staff hours reduction. So reduction in staff means reduction in programs.
If you don't have anyone to run the little programs, and did she say anything about whether that was a big deal, not big deal, really stopping people from coming in and checking out books or anything of that nature? A concern there?
Well, certainly it would be their preference to have increased staff hours to be able to meet what they perceive as an increasing demand for program services. I believe the reductions were 17 hours of staff hours and actually 4 hours of operational hours that were reduced from the previous year.
Which really kind of is counterintuitive for me to say that the head count is up 7% with less hours. So it would be the comparative numbers that I would be curious to find out if they're doing totals versus totals, which means even more people are going to the library even with less hours. So we're getting a better bang for the buck, so to speak.
Based on the numbers that I've given, that is the conclusion. Yes.
Okay. Questions of Paul, the library? Seeing none, can we segue to Public Works and Kathy Simard?
I met with Carl on September 23rd. I did send everybody on the Budget Committee notes from my discussion. I'll kind of go over them quickly. I did send out a copy of the updated road plan, so everybody should have that also. There were, looking over the road plan, there were some roads that ended up getting done that when we had our meetings previously were not going to get done. They did end up getting done, and right now it looks like even with some of the overages that we went over on some of the roads, there were some that we didn't have an overage. Right now, we are, as of this writing, in September 23rd, we were under budget. Not by much, but we were under budget. Some of our other discussions included the roundabout project. And as of this writing, currently this project was scheduled for completion the 3rd week in October. And I believe from one of the selectmen's meeting when Carl talked, I think that got pushed back because we had some additional change orders or whatever
Drainage.
that had to. And then they had to lay some additional tar to accommodate the trucks and the buses. That's why there's that little piece that goes around, which is different than the one in Grasmere where you actually can drive over it. This one you can't, but it's for trucks and buses to go around effectively and efficiently.
It's gonna get raised and it'll, be
Right.
like, when it's all done, it'll be like an inch or two.
Okay.
Okay. We talked about the drainage project. Currently, when I met with him, there was no completion date for this project, but I think as of last night, isn't it supposed to be completed soon?
Very soon, yeah. That was the issue, was the drainage. That was the predominant delay, because last year we voted during that special meeting to take, it was last year, to take
Green
advantage of the ARA funding.
Yes.
Laconia, I think it was the town of Laconia, or maybe it was Plymouth, one of those towns had secured ARA funding as well, but then they decided to give it up because they got a better grant. We were then next in line to get money, and it just got freed up, and that was the cause of the delay for us. So that's why we then did the change order very quickly to try to expedite it. So there was a lot of things that were out of our control there.
We also talked about the Concord Co-op, and I did send everybody a hyperlink so that they could look at that page. The selectmen at this time had given the go-ahead for Carl to sign a 15-year contract with the Concord Co-op on Monday. This contract will go in effect in about 8 months. The goal is to lower our tipping rates for recyclables. It will provide us with a shorter drive to the dumping location. We should see an increase in revenues as the Concord Co-op usually gives back between $5 to $10 a ton more than our current setup. Carl noted that we have gone from paying for recyclables $25 a ton this year to seeing a return of between $10 to $5 per ton, depending on the cycle and what the going rate is at that time. Also, along with that, we are now picking up recyclables in Manchester, and we should see some revenue from that also coming from that world. We talked about salt.
Hang on for a second. Are
Sure.
we our trucks are going to Manchester to pick up recyclables?
Yes. Well, actually, no, Manchester is bringing their
Bringing it
recyclables
here. Yeah,
to
they're-
our dump.
Correct.
Okay.
This part of a pilot.
Yep. Okay.
And the revenue is only minimal,
Right.
very minimal.
Well, they've had some challenges. I think when I went, because I also went to the solid waste meeting last Thursday, and we discussed limes and bottles, and that's making dirty trash as opposed to clean trash. So that might be an issue. We talked about salt. The salt bid came in lower this year than last. $215 versus $206 of what we expected this year for the usage. Let's see, truck purchases, we all know about that, and we're gonna talk about that on Saturday. He just said that needs haven't changed, we still really need these trucks. And what they talked about last night at the Selectmen is the same exact thing that Carl and I had discussed. We talked about the Budget Committee 10% reduction suggestion. I asked Carl about the Budget Committee suggestion, and he had mentioned that the Selectmen had also asked for that. His list included reduction in staff. I asked what that would look like. Currently, he uses two road crews a day, which consist of the following people: an operations person, 2 to 3 truck operators, 1 laborer, and 2 flaggers. Then there is the trash truckers, 2 people a day, and then the cemetery workers, snow plowers, and the people who run the dump, and the person at DPW. It all depends on what services the people want to cut. So he had, given me a breakdown of that. He also mentioned the pay-as-you-throw program, which I'm very passionate about. He believes this is still a good project to look at, and we would see savings. That's when he told me that I should go to the Solid Waste Committee, which I did, and we did discuss it, and there's gonna be further discussion on that, and hopefully a presentation to the community. And then he also talked about trash pickup every other week instead of weekly, and the community doesn't seem to want that, but that was one of his other suggestions to save money.
Well, as a segue on that, the other thing that I had heard was the amount of trash that would be picked up every other week would be more than we could actually handle.
And people were concerned about the smell. Actually, your wife had brought that up as a topic that people had said to her that was a major concern. Other items of discussion, DPW did go ahead with the purchase of the CAD system that we talked about last year, along with the scanner. the
We
S.
talked about not funding.
Correct.
Okay.
They did make that purchase. They will also be making the GPS purchase this year. Instead of going with the Trumbull, they are looking at an Inca brand, which he believes will give them more bang for their buck. We also talked about the library parking lot. The selectmen had asked DPW to do the library parking lot, and it was completed and seems to be received well by the library patrons. And pretty much that's it. There was a lot of information. You know, that's what we talked about, and if anybody needs, like I said, I sent this out that day to everybody on the committee, but if somebody's missing something or they can't find it, I'd be happy to do that again.
Here's the question. You said their budget wasn't overspended on the road project. Does that mean their appropriation?
Yes.
Okay, so this is now October, and are they kind of done for the season? Or
No, I
when you
believe
say the appropriation, are
This
you?
was in September 23rd.
Right.
So at that point, and the final numbers haven't come in, and I do believe that Carl will share that with us on Saturday. I could be incorrect, but
This is for, I'm sorry.
for the road program as
Road
it
program.
stands
Okay.
today,
Or it stood on 9/23?
correct. And I have not talked to him since about that. I guess I could send him an email and ask him for an update, and I could share it with everybody before Saturday.
I'm sure we'll give you an update on
Yeah,
that. That's
we
not
can
necessary.
talk, or we can just make sure we can chat about it, but Saturday's supposed to be for budget.
The
but-
vast majority of the road program is completed.
Okay.
Any questions? John?
Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
I'm sorry.
The plotter, how was that, how much was it for one? You know, the two material, you know, the things they bought, the two items.
Carl didn't have that information. I went back and looked in my notes about how much he had anticipated, but I don't actually know,
And was
nor
that
did
in-
he, what they actually bought. But it's a bottom line budget. He found the money somehow.
And was that CIP or,
No,
but last year, did they try to get it through that or?
no.
Oh, okay, so they were just trying to, and the town said no or the budget committee?
Well, they had made a decision to take that out of the budget.
Let me
Okay.
take
All right.
take
Oh, I'm
that one.
sorry.
When the budget committee looks at the budget line items, we look at stuff, and we're always asked, what do you wanna fund, what do you don't wanna fund? That was one of the things that the budget committee looked at and said, gee whiz, maybe that shouldn't be something to be funded in that year, we could try to do it in another year.
Okay,
That was the discussion,
all right.
all right? And now, you hear a lot of us coming back, and they're saying, gee whiz, budget committee, how come you're not looking at line numbers? You made cuts to the MS7 and the MS27 lines. Well, we always come back and say, well, it doesn't matter what we do at the detail line, because if the governing body wants to do something, they have that authority in the law. So no matter what we look at, in statute, our job is the MS7 and the MS27.
Well, where my question was coming from, I thought which I thought I was wrong, and I am, that the voters said no.
No, the voters never
Okay.
deal
They never
at
dealt
that
with, okay,
detail,
all right,
unless it's a special article.
okay.
If
yeah.
it's the budget, if you look on the warrant article when you get to the poll, and you look at the warrant article, it says, do you wanna spend, and there's one big dollar amount. That's
Yes.
all they're approving.
Yes,
And the only thing that they're held accountable to by the Department of Revenue is the MS7 and the MS27. MS7 for the town, MS27 for the school. And even at that point, they're broken down into department levels, so to speak. But there are ways to transfer funds in between either. So it is what it is. And, not that I necessarily either agree or disagree, but you gotta give a governing body the opportunity to run, because things happen. A budget is a budget.
yeah, well, I
And
was
that's-
just curious how it came down.
I'm just looking at you because you asked the question, not because of
Yeah.
anything else.
Well, I was just curious how it came down, now I understand. And on the GPS, what's the cost for that, and what is it needed for?
The GPS is,
Wasn't that around
Peter-
50?
No, it was budgeted at 50,
Right.
Right.
but when the bids went out, it came in at like $18,000 or $19,000.
there were 3 bids,
There
and
were
one
3
of them
bids, one was
included,
42,
right, and that included training though, and I don't think the other
the other
two
one did.
included.
Yeah, the other one, it was limited training.
Right,
Yeah, but
and if you read the bid, he did request training for so many days.
yeah,
so-
and don't quote me on that, it was somewhere around $18,000 or $19,000 was
Right.
the bid for it, and it's,
I can go on the webpage and look.
Yeah, it
'cause
should
it's
be right on the
What's it-
webpage.
What's it for?
It's for GPS,
What
Oh.
it does,
for
Surveying.
surveying.
Oh, sir, okay. So they know how to get to Bay Street and other, okay, so that's not that tight, because I was,
Right, no,
I
no,
was.
it's not a traveling thing.
Okay,
No,
so
it's
it's
not
the,
Trevor, I'm sorry.
If they wanna lace down some lines or put in some curbing or find out where the lot line is
Yeah,
or
you-
something of that
Yeah, we
nature.
have this whole,
Yeah.
you know, system where you have to, inventory inventory your assets, or you have drainage. Good example is that it'll be used on the cemetery expansion, where you have to lay out roads and you have to actually lay out, you know, where you're gonna put plots, et cetera. Now, that's kind of where, I think it's accurate within like I think 6 inches, I think, 3 to 6 inches, something like that.
okay,
Depend on which one you get.
Yeah,
all right, so that, yeah, because my brother works for the power company.
yeah,
and-
something similar to that.
Well,
yeah.
they have every pole
Yeah.
GPSed and.
Yep.
I mean, that's, I don't know how they do that, but, all right, and that's around 18,000.
Yep, it's 18 or 19, it's on the web.
All right, thank you.
Further questions for Kathy on DBW? Excellent, let's segue over to, now, John, did you get a chance to go to the October 4 school board, or did you go to,
Went last night.
you went last night, okay.
I
There
don't
was
think I
no
was.
one on the October 4th.
I don't think there was anyone. Okay, so we're off a whole rotation. I'll send it out a new rotation, which means Ivan should be there on November 1, if we work that through. So, if you could talk about the school board, okay. Sue, you wanna grab October 4? You wanna tell us about what happened on October 4? Or we can go get it later.
I know this afternoon, after I got home from town hall, I wrote something down. The problem is now, where did I put it? I don't think I have October 4th.
Okay, then why don't we take John, and you can talk about last night and any meetings you had with Mountain View.
All right, I did not have any meetings with Mountain View.
Okay.
I felt that he's gonna be here pretty soon, so I could just hear him here.
Okay.
But, I did go last night, and it was very interesting. I went to the ANF?
Yep.
Yep. The manifest was $1,078,599.53. Payroll was 490,000 some change. Taxes on that was 157,000 and some change. The Goffstown truck was only $5,740, and that was MST school and Alvin school. That's just for that transportation. Special ed was $70,362.
That was all out-of-district placements.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Sue. They had a meeting with the bond underwriter, and that went very well. They're looking at probably a double A3, which is the high end for a school district, because they can't retain money like a town can.
Right.
So the current interest rate is 4.25%. They don't know what the new interest rate's gonna be, but they're estimating over the life of the bond, which is 10 years, there'll be a savings of about 400,000. They are expected to receive on November 15th a payment from New Boston for 1.3 million, and Dunbarton for 630,000 for students coming here, and that's a third payment. Next month will be a big one for the manifest, as there will be electricity, heat, transportation, and benefits all included, plus all your other usual stuff. Stacy Buckley did explain that, whoops, I am sorry, I'm out of line. Nope, I am
Out of
right on
order.
it. Yes. Yeah, I don't know why I wrote it up there. If I can back up, Sue and Ray Labor, if I said his name right, is having concerns from answering questions from us. And currently, if I understand, and this is what Keith Allard explained, was all questions from us, the board members, go through you, and you have a special email to Keith or the board.
In the past, we've done that.
Yeah, and they would like to continue it, so that way all answers get answered, all questions get answered, and everybody is on board with what's going on, because they feel that if I, Kathy, or Bill, or anybody else starts throwing hundreds of questions at them, there may be a few that slip through, which is probably true. And so they just want to make sure that everything is in line. So they still want to continue with all questions.
I'll
from
take it
us
under
to you.
advisement, but that goes directly with me, and I think I responded to Keith, and I said, Keith, Sue's been doing a great job taking the questions back for our budget committee thing here. I have been so extremely busy, I have not had as much time to focus on those kind of things and do it in a timely manner, and I think Sue's done a great job. For those things that's outside that you guys asked me, I have no problem capturing them and forwarding to everybody, but for the moment, unless Sue has a real problem for the moment, and you can speak up now, Sue.
Well, my concern was we had an agreed-upon method of operation.
Last year.
Right.
Yeah.
And nothing was said about changing that until last meeting.
Yeah, I think what it was from my receiving of the emails, you hadn't done an inquiry to GSD or whatever the email account is, something, you had done it directly to Ray, and I think, yeah. And I think that, yeah, well, something like that. For the moment, though, it would be great if you could, if there's any questions that come up at the budget committee meetings, until I get free from my daytime job. When we start doing budgets and things like that, I don't mind compiling all of that stuff, and we'll work on it. But I'm not ready for another month at least to be able to go through that.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll work it through.
On that basis, it's a temporary.
Yeah, we'll work it through. We'll get something worked through, but until I get through the next election, which is November 4th, or November 2nd, everybody, if you wait till November 4th, you're gonna
You
be
miss,
missing it.
yeah.
So, everybody, don't forget to go out and vote November 2nd. All right.
Joe the bully is coming to the school.
Joe the who?
Bully, you know, like bully.
Bully.
Oh.
Like
No,
he's
Joe
gonna-
the biker.
Oh, he's Joe the
Joe
biker.
the biker who was bullied
Yeah,
at one
he was
time.
bullied when he was
Okay.
a child, and he is gonna talk to all the children.
Okay.
That is paid for by a grant. So, you know, I guess he's gonna help there, because I guess there is a problem in the school. Stacy Buckley, she was the one that spoke mostly. What was next is, when she got up and went over some of the papers which will be available online, for the proposed budget for 2011-2012 school year. She has removed $250,000 from the Barnard Park track. They were gonna redo the track, and she removed.
Is that on the next fiscal year
No,
budget?
that's this year.
No,
On this year.
next,
This,
Next.
oh, next.
11-12 is next.
Okay,
Okay, because we're gonna
We're in
hold
10,
off
11.
talking about the
Okay.
11-12 until after.
all right, and then I'll skip right through then. All right, so you don't want any information on,
On 11-12, we'll get to it after we finish all the, department reports.
okay, nope, then I guess I'm done then. That was it. You know, the school board meeting went pretty good.
Okay?
In a timely, they zipped right through it pretty quick, so I was pretty happy with that.
Well, Ivan's not here to talk about the high school, Jen is not here to talk about Maple Ave, Bill's not here to talk about Bartlett. John, you have anything on SAU, or?
I do. I
Glenn
was
Lake?
gonna ask John Burt a question if I could.
Sure.
So did principals present their budgets at that school board meeting, or is that tomorrow night?
No, a few of them did last night.
They
All
did?
the elementaries last night,
Okay.
Mountain View, and the high school tomorrow night.
Okay,
It's public if you guys wanna.
yeah,
go.
that's why I was
Absolutely.
asking.
Yeah.
Are they serving food?
Pardon?
Are they serving food?
I don't think so.
No, that's at another
Media room,
meeting
7
that's
o'clock?
coming up.
Pardon?
The media room, 7 o'clock
7
tomorrow?
o'clock, yeah.
Okay, thanks. And
There's
you guys are
public
getting
comment on the
together, right?
agenda, so
Yeah, and it's, well, it's on GTV if you wanna watch it. I think 16, I believe.
yeah, they were both on live last night.
Yes.
School board and selectmen.
Okay, further questions, John?
Yep, so I can report on Glen Lake and then SU.
Yes, please.
SAU, please. So, they had mentioned that there was, so I met with Leslie at Glen Lake. Actually, I didn't meet with her, I spoke with her a few weeks ago. I'm gonna do Glen Lake first and then SAU. So first thing I wanted to mention is tomorrow night's meeting, although I think Glen Lake was probably covered last
Night.
night. Okay, so
There wasn't much to cover.
is that right? Okay. So be online. So just some figures, stats on Glen Lake so far this year, 175 students. and Leslie conveyed that the operation is larger than most people realize or guess. Pre-K, so there's significant pre-K classes or students over there, 60. Kindergarten, 115. So together that adds up to 175. 50 of those 175 are some kind of special needs students. And that
50?
50, approximately 50, 50. And that runs a broad range of special needs, broad range. But, I think her comment was that, one of the comments was that entails significant budget expenditures.
And just to make a point, we start taking kids in there at 3 years old who have problems. And we take, the other kids, regular kids, they have to be 6 by September 30th to get into the school year. No matter when this child turns 3, it could be December or March, they come to school as soon as they turn 3. So we always end the year with more students than we begin the year there in that program.
Yeah, so that pre-K would be 3 and 4-year-olds
Right.
typically. And, for example, she said if a family moves to town with 3 and 4-year-olds or whatever,
Right.
they have to be accommodated within 30 days. Just in general, in terms of planning, future budgeting, that's a real challenge they deal with. Class sessions, again, just so you get an idea, preschool, about 5 classes a week, 5 separate classes. Kindergarten, there's 7 separate classes, in the morning, 3 in the afternoon for kindergarten. Average kindergarten class size, 15 to 16, she said, which at that level, it's lower than normal, but it's what they think is most appropriate. Again, number of students always somewhat in flux and unpredictable, so it's changing throughout the year, people moving away. One thing different about their budgeting is school assemblies instead of field trips. So the kids are younger, not old enough to go on field trips, so they're bringing in presenters occasionally. So it's just something different. For example, actually they had one today, Michelle's Menagerie Visits, bringing in animal group for the kids. So just something different about that school. And Leslie, wanted to convey wonderful parents group. The administration there takes local fundraising very seriously, or they do what they can. It adds up, it helps out. For example, box tops and other programs that they get reimbursements for. They also do apply and get some federal preschool grants, which helps offset their budget. For example, especially for supplies, which at that level are especially higher than the upper grades. Lots of supplies. No textbooks at the kindergarten level, which is a good thing, saving money or a difference, using a lot of journals and workbooks instead. So that's Glen Lake. Any questions on that?
Nope, we're cool.
SAU. SAU, I've met with Ray and Stacy last week for this month. We've talked, it's been a mix of current budget and mostly future budget and the planning process for that. I think one thing we've talked about is what we want to be discussing at those meetings, what's expected from the budget committee, and what they'd like to be discussing. And so we talked about a few things. I'll try to make it brief, but one question that needs clarifying: am I there to talk about the SAU budget, which is about 1.7 million? Am I there to focus on just the district budget, which is about 7 million and includes the SAU budget, or all of the above?
Since we have representatives from each of the schools would be talking about their own budgets. Some of the things that the schools have very little discretion about are personnel matters, so to speak, and the funding thereon. Your presence at the SAU would have an overall effect that wouldn't show up at the schools, and that's kind of hard to discern. but mostly it is the SAU budget and how they are doing on the SAU, because we have somewhere between 68 and 70% portion of that the Goffstown School
Not just a
District.
third, but a significant portion, yeah.
It's well over two-thirds.
Yeah, probably.
So it's a large majority. So that would be one thing that would be appropriate to try to bring back to us, as I would expect the other individuals at the other schools are to talk about budget and how they're doing. And what I've heard is they don't have much discretion on some of those other items. So it would be the ones that are non-discretionary that might be interesting to hear from Ray and Stacy as an overall look, but not, otherwise than that, it's somewhat redundant.
Yeah. I think one thing we're gonna try to do is talk more about those budget items within the 7 million that are shared among all the schools in the Goffstown district. So facilities director, IT, maintenance, busing contracts, district special ed, and just, maybe clarify how they're doing each month on those, spend more time on that. So anyway, again, I think they wanted to convey, at least they did to me, that budgeting revenues for them is a real challenge. Not just expenditures, but expected revenues, but I guess we're talking future planning there.
Well, it's both on that. It's the current budget, because the school we just ended, there's over 900 and something thousand dollars of revenue that came in from the other jurisdictions that come to our school. And, when I kinda asked Ray about that, I said, man, he said much of that had to do with special education.
Yeah.
And that could be 7 kids. I mean, that's real easy to come up there, because it sometimes hits $100,000 a year when you have a real special needs individual out of district placement. So, but it would be interesting, those kind of things, to talk about revenue and where we are, estimated revenue.
Sorry about that.
Actual. That would be another thing to talk about at the SAU level.
Yeah, they've mentioned how state funding is very tough. It's up in the air right now, what
Right.
will actually be coming, again, for the coming year. They won't know till maybe March or so. Anyway, briefly, worth mentioning, impact of more kids in the public school system, especially at the elementary level. They have an increase of 27 new students this year over last year.
It's just at Bartlett.
Well, no, it's 17 more at Bartlett and 10 more at Maple. So I have the figures here, what it was and what it went to. But elementary, as they say, is bursting at the seams. Third grade, both third and fourth grade are concerned for class sizes. If I'm not mistaken, it's probably 26 and 27 students in a class for both third grade and fourth grade. I'm gonna double check on that, but that's
No,
my note.
that's right.
The state maximum is 30 students in a class.
That's we had that discussion last night, probably after you left. Were you
No,
still
I was there, yeah,
That's in a 900 square foot classroom.
yeah.
None of our elementary classrooms are 900 square feet.
10 square feet per student.
No, 30.
Oh, 30? Oh,
30
apologize.
square feet per
Right.
student.
Yeah.
So that's where our class size stuff comes in. At Bartlett, you couldn't put 30 kids in any room in that school because it just, I mean, the old rooms that were built in 1920 are nowhere near 900 square feet. Some of them are only 630. So
Okay.
it's tough.
So lastly is another challenge, at least lastly in terms of current year things. So they, from that new development near Rite Aid, they have 15 new kids approximately from that development. And just, a recognition.
15 or
15, 1-5.
15.
No, 1-5. And I think just a recognition that, there's more developments like that. At least they thought, 1 or 2 being planned as well, maybe one on Montella Road. I think what's being considered there is 17 single-family homes.
Approved.
Has it been approved?
Yeah.
So I think, they recognize that as an additional challenge. The population is not decreasing in Goffstown, and I think they just took a ballpark guess, 17 family homes, that's it, anywhere from 17 to 25 possible kids. So I have other things for future budget planning. You want me to segue into that now, or?
Can I ask a question first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is John's assignment the SAU or the Goffstown district lines, or both? Because the district lines are bigger than some of the school budgets.
Yeah, it's about 7
It's-
million.
It's, the SAU budget is inside
Yeah.
the district.
It's within.
Yeah, okay.
So it's really the Goffstown School District
District.
line, and that's, so, and the SAU expenditure is inside there.
I think one comment they had was that that SAU budget per se is, not within the sole purview of this committee or Goffstown, since it's agreed upon by Dunbarton and New Boston at the full school board meeting.
It is, but the one thing I keep saying is since Goffstown has 68 to 70%, there is a foolproof, if the board
Oh.
members so desire, it is what Goffstown wants.
It's a weighted vote.
Hmm?
It's a weighted vote.
Yeah, it's a weighted vote, which is RSA, which is in the law.
9 of us and 10 of them.
But it's weighted
So
vote,
The only way we can prevail
yes.
is a weighted vote.
Okay,
Sorry,
questions?
I had other items about, their.
If it's about future budgets,
Yeah.
we're gonna wait.
Okay.
If, any questions for John on? Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about, you said there was significant levels of pre-K. I wanted to know, are there any fees associated with that currently?
So, meaning do pre-K parents pay fees?
Right.
There are some.
There are
Yes,
some.
they do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Most students.
We have,
Is it a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1?
it's supposed to be it's supposed to be
1-to-1.
50 involved children, 50 not involved children. That's the way they would want us to set it up.
But right
Those
now,
people,
there's
those,
60.
they're what they call models, role models, kids. In other words, if you have a child that has a speech problem, it does him no good to speak to another child with a speech problem. He learns from the kid who can speak normally. So that's the premise. And those people who send the model children pay tuition. And no, I don't know what that number is.
There would be a question for you, John, to see what the current level of pre-K students
Pardon?
pay tuition.
I doubt it.
And what that current tuition rate is.
Does that answer your question too? Do you want
I just
about
remember-
fees as well? Is that what you mean by fees, Paul? Tuition, or do you mean?
Right, if you do what he asked, I'll be
Okay,
satisfied.
okay.
You have something, Christie?
I thought when we did our tour of the Glen Lake, that at the time, it was $1,200 a year, but maybe it's gone up.
It's a lot more than that.
It was,
Yeah.
it was very, very, very reasonable. I remember us making comment on,
John will find out.
I'll find out.
Paul?
I did have one more thing. There's a lot of mention of revenue from out-of-district placement.
Not revenue, but expenditures.
Or
Those are expenses.
I mean the other.
Yeah, there's
direction.
revenue too, though, because we, with all our special education staffing and facilities, we do take in students from outside Goffstown district, and there's revenue from that. So,
Oh, okay.
Right. So regarding that, and also regarding just any revenue from students from other towns,
Mhm.
does that revenue equal exactly or roughly the cost associated with,
Yes, it does.
There's an area agreement
No,
that,
no, we just had a situation where a student from Hooksett needed to make a change in schooling. And we were petitioned to allow them to come to Goffstown High School. Now, Hooksett will pay $8,300 a year for that student to come to Goffstown High School.
I was
But
referring
our
to.
cost per pupil at the high school is considerably more than that, and the parents up front pay the difference. So we will get 100% of the cost of that student, and they provide the transportation
From,
and everything.
right.
From Hooksett.
Let's talk about Dunbarton and New Boston.
All right, yes,
That's the area agreement.
right.
And was that where you were referencing, Paul, or were you for
yes, that, as well as any
part
other
of the
revenue?
SAU? not necessarily outside the SAU. Inside the SAU, there's an area agreement that has a calculation in it that talks about it. So there's somewhat of the infrastructure is like a depreciation level cost is put into there, but it's not the full cost necessarily.
Right.
But it's supposed to be weighted.
I guess what I'm primarily interested in is anywhere there's revenue, if that revenue equals the cost to provide the services, or if it's more or less. Basically, I'm trying to calculate its impact on the budgets, whether it's all a wash, or if it's extra free money supposedly, or if it ends up being, costing more than the revenue that comes in, or.
You wanna give it a shot, Scott?
Yeah, you take, let's just say the high school budget, that's kind of easy because we have all of that's the easiest one. The middle school is challenging because we only have 7th and 8th graders from Dunbarton and New Boston. So let's go to the high school. You would take out the total high school budget. You would pull out anything that would be specific to Goffstown. Special education is one of those things. So if there was a special ed out-of-district placement or some special ed stuff, that gets out of the equation. You take out, I believe it's transportation, Manchester School of Technology. You're taking out certain pieces of it. Then you're applying an average daily membership. So how many kids are in attendance in the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, and then every month. And so it is based upon what those total costs are. On top of that, as Dan said, we get a rental fee, and then that was renegotiated because I was on that group. It's at 2.5% rental is then kind of attached to that to cover some of these capital costs. We tried for more, but we weren't so successful. We tried for 3, but the state board, we got 2.5. So it helps. I personally think it should be more, but it's not what we could get. So I think at the end of the day, I think it is a wash myself. I don't think we make money on it, nor do I think we lose money on it.
And they, on their end of their,
Now,
feel that they're being gouged, so I mean,
yeah, right. They
nobody's happy with it, so it must be a
they feel
good
as if they're
agreement.
being charged, more. We feel probably we can get more. We've talked about it, and I'll just I don't want to start this whole thing over again, but there are certain things that Goffstown does provide. It's true. We do the fire inspections on the buildings, and we don't get reimbursed for that. We mow the lawns, we do the plowing, we take the trash.
Which you would do anyway.
But you wouldn't have as much of it. And and then the SRO, I mean, so I have my feelings on that, but I'm not gonna, but those are other costs that we pick up the tab on.
So, bottom line, it's a wash. So if you look at the revenue that comes in from the other communities, it would supposedly calculated to be a wash, including a piece of the capital. That's the only one. That 2.5% overhead is the only thing that's
So
not
in general,
necessary.
unexpected revenue should not have any significant impact on something like the tax rate.
It shouldn't, except for, and remember one thing Scott pulled out was the special ed.
Right.
And from my years on the committee, the estimated revenue for special ed reimbursements have been historically lowballed on the revenue side. So when it comes in $1 million over, then it can probably get back to the attributable and ask, okay, what was expected when the budget was created versus what happened? And you can see, from what I've been told, it was primarily special ed reimbursements, out-of-district placements, but I do not have that exact detailed explanation for this last fiscal year.
The only really true way to try to solve that is, and we've talked about it for years, and that's, some towns have these special education revolving funds where you have money in an account.
Like a capital reserve.
It's almost like a reserve fund, and that, let's just say, for an example, a couple of families move in and they have very heavily involved student placements where it might cost $120,000 a year. If you did, yeah, it's possible, and then you throw in transportation. So you would then be able to use that fund, because what happens is we get reimbursement from the federal government, from Medicaid typically, but that's usually in arrears. So then we have catastrophic aid, which is from the
Arrears,
state,
a year
that's a year in
And
arrears.
gets reduced every year.
Yeah, so that's kinda complicated, but sorry to
All right.
We have fun.
pain.
Does that make John done? He's saying yes, so he's not looking for any more questions. Sue, do you have anything to add on the school board meetings that John B. wasn't
No,
able to?
The stuff I have is for future budget.
Okay. So that segues out of the school side reports. Bill, do you have anything on the water district in Grassmere that's real
Not real
budget committee
pithy,
kind of?
other than
okay.
we, we sent over to the town that the rates that we would be charging for rentals on the hydrants would not change.
Okay,
Typically take an increase, and we did not this year.
okay. And we would talk about that too, and Dan's thought process about whether that's a town expense or that should be mitigated into the,
Probably my daughter.
whether that should be in the town budget or that should be in the fees. Curious question.
Well, there is a number in the town budget to pay.
Right, but I'm
rentals.
saying, why is the entire town paying for hydrants that the entire town doesn't get the opportunity to use? There are a number of locations within Goffstown that don't have any hydrants anywhere near them. Is a subject that I might
Don't
be
have a river flowing by
talking
their
about.
house.
Or you can or can't draw,
This is for the.
Or a lake.
This is to supply the water
Yeah.
for the town to use with their fire trucks,
yep. Okay,
okay?
yeah,
Right,
So it's water that the town uses.
yeah,
Just happens to be kind of geographically narrow.
yeah.
Don't go down that rat hole.
Questions for Bill? I don't wanna go too far on that one, I'm gonna be coming to you right in a minute, Dick. Christie?
What do they charge per hydrant?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
It's not gonna increase, you don't know what it, roughly they charge? When was the last time they've had an increase to the users?
We had an increase to the users, I believe, last year, and we are not planning to have an increase to the users. We do it about every, perhaps as needed, maybe 5 years or something like that. It's not something that gets done.
So last year there was an increase,
It was last year and perhaps the year before,
and you'll find out how much it is per hydrant?
if you wish that information.
I would, please.
Further questions for the Goffstown, or Grassmere Water District? Okay, go Dick.
First of all, before I start.
Yeah.
Let me remind everybody, you may live in East Goffstown, or you may live on the back road to Goffstown, and there is no hydrants. Remember, when your house catches fire, the fire department will go to that hydrant and fill the tankers to help put the fire out in your house. So don't ever think that every taxpayer in this town doesn't have the benefit of the water system. And there's no charge for us lugging it to East Goffstown or anywhere else
Oh,
for the water taken out.
but the taxes do pay for that currently.
They pay for it for everybody.
If the tank is there in that tank
And
for the
if
first
you live
3
within
minutes.
If you live within 500 feet of that hydrant,
Oh, yeah,
whether you have water to your house or not, you're gonna get a rate for it.
absolutely.
All right.
Because if you're within 500 feet, but if
Don't
you're only
for
2.5
1
miles.
minute think that everybody isn't benefiting. There is different charges.
water.
There is
Your
different
lake.
charges,
Yes,
and it depends on what section of town you live in. I know personally that the town highway department draws water through the meter at the fire station to use the water. And you know who pays the bill?
have no
The town.
idea. The town does?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
But
it's probably for the benefit of the
Probably
town.
comes out of the fire department budget.
The
So-
street
So
sweep,
everybody gets a benefit of the water.
Put your hand
and it's important to the safety of this community.
Okay.
And don't for 1 minute think that it isn't, because for 25 years, I used it.
Understand, Dick.
In addition, the street sweeper or the septic, the sewer suckers or whatever, those units from Public Works take water often from the hydrants
From that hydrant,
in Grassmere
okay.
area.
And that's all
where-
part of, no matter how many boatloads of water they take, it's just that one fee?
Exactly.
Okay.
Our hydrants are not metered.
Okay.
And
But they
use
pay
them.
for it because it goes through another meter for the whole
Right.
section of Grassmere.
Right.
And if you don't keep track of what you take and then charge somebody for it, then you're paying it on your rates. The ratepayers in that section of town, when they hook onto a hydrant and take water out of it, it's going through a meter on Mass Road that the section of Grassmere, when they pay their water bill, their water bill is based on what goes through that meter.
Exactly.
That's right. Thank you.
But if we were to get a couple of tankers, we wouldn't need the hydrant, so we could buy tankers.
Where would you fill the tankers?
What?
Where would you be
Glen
filling
Lake or something,
the
right
tankers?
next to Guy's house.
Be pumped out of
Or Bay Street, or, I mean, we'd find a spot to get the water.
Oh.
They charge us probably, but I'm just joking.
Well,
We've
but-
gone through this thing 100, I can't believe you started that, Dan.
It's okay, I'm gonna stop in a second. What do you got, John?
But Scott, and when you get a homeowner's quote on a homeowner's insurance, don't they ask you, it seems to me they ask you,
Yes.
what is are there any hydrants within?
This had
Yeah.
just exacerbated the conversation another 8 minutes, but go
Yeah.
ahead.
I'm sorry,
And
never
this
mind,
is-
Scott,
and
I'll
it
talk to you after.
Go, Dick.
And it's all rated by insurance company.
Yeah.
Distance you live from a fire station, distance you live from a hydrant, you know,
Well, that's my point.
what you have for equipment,
I get
it's all part of the equation.
street
And it's, everybody benefits.
in that. Runoff pond.
Goffstown Water Village District.
Goffstown Water Village District, budget is okay. There is some problems with it. I don't anticipate any problems at the end of the year because with the dry weather and the amount of water being used, it has doubled in the last 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
Our income will go up.
Okay.
We have some water mains on Mass Road that we've had to take care of.
Is that in conjunction with that?
We have
Sewer
a
project?
development on Tyler Drive off of Worthy Hill Road, 40 new homes. You talk about homes being, it is phased in, I guess. It's
thank
gonna
God.
be phased in. But we're taking over the water system for Tyler Drive and supplying the water for all the other 40 homes up there. That was approved recently. We've had some problems with the dam at the reservoir. We've corrected it and been inspected by the state. Told we had to fix it, we did. There's still some more work to be done. And the dam at the base of the mountain, which feeds into our reservoirs. We had to spend $6,000 or $7,000 last year to bring that up to state specs. I assume this year it'll pass with no problem. Again, I say, in the last 4 months, every month we've doubled the amount of water that we use on our system. And to just bring up a little bit on it, you know, if you start running our pumps, which we have to do, which are up here on the river, it costs a lot of money to operate them pumps 24 hours a day. One of the pumps we had to repair, do some repair work on it. So, you know, you say you take in more revenue, but in the end, you hope that it pays for all the problems that you run into when you start using your equipment. I don't anticipate any problems, so I guess that's pretty much.
Questions for Dick in the Goffstown Village Water District?
Not a question, but a comment.
Okay.
With the Lynchville Danis Park water hookup, there will be additional hydrants. That's not these two, that's Manchester Waterworks.
Is
Which we pay a
Manchester-
hydrant rental. We do the same exact thing that we do for these two water precincts. And because of that, because those systems are now online, we will also pay an additional, so you'll see in the fire operations budget,
Right.
you'll see an increase for fire hydrants because of that. And I would suspect that once Viking Orchard and the village takes over Tyler, we will then see another increase, for that, so.
How many new ones?
We'll have to ask the fire chief, I'm not sure, but I think it was, let me just see, in terms of the budget, I think it was $10,000 or $15,000, it wasn't.
There was a direct relation between putting additional fire hydrants in Litchfield that increased the budget, although the town was taken care of before. I'm going back to my other system to see who's paying for what where. The direct benefit would be for someone who's closer to a fire hydrant would presume that rates would be less. Which goes back to my original thought process, that depending on where you live in town, you don't get the same benefit, but you're paying the same share of the cost. That could happen. Not.
15 or 16,000.
When something is not correct, you don't move, you fix it.
Why do they put a hydrant? Why do they put a hydrant in that development? Because
Save the other
planning
town,
board-
save the other houses.
Because of the planning board requires it. And who requests it?
Who do you,
Follow it through. If you develop something and you get an impact statement from the fire department, they tell you what they want, the planning board's gonna follow it. That is a good thing, but it costs you money.
Well, let's blame it on the planning board. Is that what I'm
Good.
hearing?
No, it's part of the system.
Oh, blaming it on
It's
the
how we
fire
operate.
department,
It's how we operate.
and the
Everybody
planning board said
operates.
yes, okay.
Doesn't matter if it's Goffstown, Manchester, Bedford, you name it.
I think Dick makes a very valid point, is that
Yeah.
over the years, you've seen, whether it be fire protection, whether you see it most recently with stormwater, and now you have these detention ponds and more of these green structures. Well, these green structures cost a lot of money to maintain. We spend an awful lot of time, cleaning up drainage structures, et cetera. Now, with these green systems, there's new regulations that are coming out that after substantial rainstorms, et cetera, they have to be cleaned out and make sure they're maintained, and no one's really sure what a substantial storm means. So,
2006, 2007, let's put the bar there.
No, we're not talking that. It could literally be, 2 or 3 inches of rain type of thing. So these are the things that we're all kind of like, we're kind of scratching our heads at. What does this mean in the long term? So they're greener, shall we say, they're nicer for the environment, but they also are costlier to maintain. So
And that's what
and
we
they're all-
just did with the air funds.
That's
We
part of
created
it,
more
right,
of a
but
headache.
this is a little bit different. That is, what we did with the ARA funds was more of a pervious pavement, more
Okay.
so. What I'm talking about and you'd probably better help, Joanne, but you're talking about these greener, like these detention ponds where there's swales and, those types of things where they have to sometimes be cut back, if they get overgrown with, grass or other things, you have to cut them back, and it's that type of thing, not so much pervious.
Bring in his sheet.
Yeah,
I'll take care of that.
yeah. Costs money.
Okay, that's
I'll rent
long
you
enough
some, I'll
segue.
rent you sheep and llama.
I love your sheets.
Oh, I do.
All right, now we can go and we can segue into the new budget and what you guys have been talking about with your departments, and things of that nature. Don't want to necessarily exacerbate to the point where we're gonna talk about what we're gonna talk about on Saturday, but if you've got some highlights and tips and things that would help us think about what's happening over the next 5 days, that would be, I think, okay, the next 4 days.
Can I just lay out what the process will be for Saturday, if that's okay?
Okay.
And then maybe that will help frame
Okay.
where we're going.
Sure.
Saturday, what you'll get is probably 15, probably more like 30 minutes, just an overview of our Goffstown budget. We're gonna try to do some trending for you. Minimally the last 5 years, we might go back even 10 years. We're gonna try to show you some things in terms of, there's a lot of, and I was telling this showing this to Guy. The Department of Revenue Administration has a wealth of information regarding comparing other towns, and I would suggest that if you can, look on that. We'll talk about revenues because we did increase our elderly exemptions and our veterans credits and those types of things, and it kind of shows you where all the money is going, because when you give a credit, that means that there's less that everybody else has to pay. So there's great information there, and I'm going to highlight some of that. Trying to get some information as to kind of the overall state of the Goffstown economy as best I can get from the state of New Hampshire. Still working on that one. Then what we're going to do is we'll break into department heads, and one of the Board of Selectmen members and the department head will do their presentation. They'll talk about really an overview of what they originally budgeted for as a department head, what a level funded budget, and then the 10%, and then ultimately the selectmen's rep will talk about this is the number that we are bringing forth, and I can tell you that we're looking at a 0 increase. So, and I believe that's been achieved in all but one department, which will be Parks and Rec, and that will be explained on Saturday, the reasons for that. Then we'll have, so I'm hoping that the presentation itself is we're doing 1 hour for every department, and I'm hoping that some of the smaller departments won't take nearly an hour between the presentation and the Q&A. And I'm hoping that, say, Parks and Rec and Library might be more like a half an hour to 45 minutes, and then in some of the ones that generate some more questions, typically it's DPW, police, and fire, or CIP type things. That's where we'll try to shave some time off some and capture it in others. So you'll get about a 15 to 20 minute, presentation with some PowerPoint slides, and then after that it'll be kind of Q&A.
So it'd be kind of similar to what you guys did last night?
But very much condensed, and that's why we're meeting tomorrow, is we're trying to say, okay, what slides, like I just got stuff from David Pierce, he worked on the DPW one, I'm working with Sue on the administration one, and I'll do the library one, and just try to give you some highlights, and a big, like an overview type of thing. So, even though you've got these budgets from, from the department heads, you'll see some changes. I can tell you that I know that Nick and the fire chief are working out. They were like $8,000 apart, and they'll fix that by Saturday. And it's still a little bit of a work in progress, to be quite honest. But we're almost there. The big hitters are going to be the same ones that you saw last year, and that's the CIP items. Just to be candid with you, our health insurance was actually somewhat favorable when the board originally put forth, tried to prepare for a budget. We prepared for a 15% increase, which was historical. That's what it's been historically over the last 5 years. It ended up being 6% for non-affiliated and 7% increase for bargaining units. So that was somewhat good news, albeit still an increase. We were fearful it would be double digit, if not more. We did not include any wage increases in any of these lines. So just so you know that, the board will discuss the possibility of a special warrant article for non-affiliated wage increases, and that would be at a later time. But so all the numbers that you're going to see, they do not reflect any wage increase. They will reflect the corresponding increase in the health insurance, though. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So that's kind of the format of it.
Do we have any numbers? I mean, we're going to meet in 5 days, and other than the department heads, do we have anything, or is that all we're going to come in with, and we're going to be handed books or something on Saturday?
I have to chat with Sue, but I think what you're gonna get, and this is my copy of it, but I just kind of highlighted this for myself. But you'll get an overview sheet, which will be kind of what John, what you talked about in your email today, is that this is 2011. This was the department head, the default. This is the draft Board of Selectmen, and this is the difference between the Board of Selectmen and the 2010 budget by dollar and then by percentage.
Right.
Okay?
That's kind of similar to what we got last year.
Okay, so you'll get that. The tax rate thing, hopefully we'll have by Saturday, because it'll be finalized. If not, we'll give you the draft one. And then the same thing with regard to revenues. We have some tentative revenue numbers as well. And it looks like our projected revenues are gonna be about $73,000 more than this current year, which is not a whole lot, but that is what that is. What you'll also see is in order to try to get to some of our bottom lines, we're gonna subtract out our drainage project that in last year. That was $114,000. The Barnard land purchase was $360. Goffstown Main Street program, and then the Nemaskey Lake Milfoil, all those come off, and then whatever then gets, built back in. So if Main Street's gonna be an article, that gets plugged in, and then there's placeholders for these collective bargaining units. There's $1 in each one. There's 4 of those, and then the non-union one. So you'll get all of that, and hopefully it's John what you were looking for, and I would agree. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel for everybody to try to if you need data and it's just a matter of creating another column for a spreadsheet, then either we can do it or you can do it, and then we all just share. There's really
So what I'm hearing is we're not gonna get the detailed books.
Yeah, we'll give you, and then that'll be the summary.
Right.
And then, what you'll also get is, and I apologize for not having it tonight, because we're still kind of massaging it. You're going to get, the budget, and my hope is what Sue has done for most of the departments is that she has gray shaded the items that the board has made a cut.
Okay.
To achieve this level fund.
Okay.
Okay, so, let's just say for an example that we decided not to fund a position, which is the case in a couple of departments, you will see that, you'll see that in there. It'll be minus.
You'll see detailed budget lines.
Yes,
Okay.
you will see all the detailed budget
Okay.
lines, and you will see areas where cuts, were made. Like I can tell you that, knowing what Nick and Chief O'Brien did is there was a lot of them. They didn't achieve. They're still they're still trying to find another $8,000. So that's why we needed a little bit more time for them. I have not had a chance to talk to the library yet, because the trustees are the ones who developed that budget, and in order to get to level funded, they have to cut $8,000. So waiting for them to come back to me. They're meeting tomorrow night.
By cuts, you're talking about reductions to the department head's request.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, to get to the 2010 budget
To
number.
level, okay.
And that's what that is what the Board of Selectmen felt comfortable with, so, and then we'll talk about how we got to that spot. But you'll have all the backup, the corresponding, all the line-by-line stuff, whether it be, turnout gear for the fire department, or whether it's, printing and binding for the library, you'll have all that.
Okay, great.
And that is going to begin at 9 o'clock in this very room on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because that was the best for everybody. Right.
Yeah.
Now, is there a estimated time of departure?
Prior to it getting dark.
So we're not gonna participate in the planting of the daffodils afterwards?
My guess, Bill, it depends how quickly it goes, but we had allocated, let's see, an hour for every department. That would be 5, and then with the intro, and then you gotta figure 6 hours, then you have to figure lunch. So yeah, I'm thinking this thing is gonna go to like 3 or 4 o'clock, easy.
But last night, you guys lasted through this thing in about 4 hours.
They didn't have
Did
lunch.
through this in 4 hours.
You guys went through these presentations from 6 to 10.
No, because we heard them before and before.
Oh, okay.
No.
Do we know the order, just out of curiosity? Or you haven't decided yet?
So that's like you wouldn't go to the
No.
baseball game depending on the
I have-
opposing
my-
pitcher
My
is.
boys have a football game.
Oh.
Yeah, she's leaving
She
at
has a
1.
commitment.
Do you know if
Fire
we're gonna
go
be able to
first.
broadcast that
Yeah,
live, or is that gonna be Memorext, or, it's a public
I
meeting?
don't know, I believe
It's a-
David Suter is gonna be here to be live. I thought that Parks and Rec was going first. Parks and Rec, then I thought library or admin.
Well, it is what it is,
Yeah.
and we'll
Sure.
deal with it. But it is a public meeting,
Can you see this?
because it is a joint meeting of the Budget Committee and the Selectmen. It's
Yeah.
gonna be pretty tight in here.
That's the issue,
But,
is that,
We can always
albeit-
project it and put a TV in the other room. Because RSA 91,
Right.
even though it says meetings are public, it does not grant,
Sorry, sorry.
it does not grant observers the right to participate. And
Right.
so if we could have, if we had to put a camera or a TV in the other room to accommodate that, because we're streaming it, we could do that.
yeah, and,
And it's over the
there,
internet.
there won't be any public comment.
Okay.
So I just want everybody to know that there won't be
Right,
public
it's
comment.
going to be for the Budget
This is for
Committee
the-
and
This is for the purpose of the Budget Committee and the Board of
the
Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen with the department heads to get together to talk about the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. The process is in public, but it's not a public process yet. That happens during the public hearing, and that's gonna happen in January.
Right.
Or at Budget Committee meetings when we get together, non-deliberative type, our monthly Budget Committee meetings. When we deliberate, we usually don't take public comment either. With that said, do you have any questions for Scott on the process or procedure, or are you good with that? Because I still want to segue, if anybody wants to input any of what they've talked to the department heads, or you think you may want to hang on to it till Saturday, or do you think you want us to hear an opine on it for the next couple of days? We can do that too. Guy, you were the first one, so I'm going to give you the opportunity, and then we'll segue around the room.
I'll try to make this really
Let's
quick.
start with a question, Guy.
And you know what, I would normally leave this alone, but I got 20 phone calls and emails about this, and I have to bring it up to make sure that this committee and members of the audience and anybody who's watching is aware of this, okay? I started to reference this report that was presented to you guys last Wednesday from the police chief, okay? And as requested by the Board of Selectmen, the police chief was asked to present budget scenarios. He presented the budget that he requesting, he presented one that reflected a level fund, and then he presented another one that reflected the consequences of a 10% reduction. Now, you're gonna have to help me out here on this
Yeah.
one, okay? I got a hold of this and went through some of the items that he mentioned would have to be eliminated because of, with a 10% reduction. A few of them, just to highlight a couple, crossing guards, we're familiar with that. Some bulletproof vests we're talking about. He's got crime prevention programs would have to be eliminated, et cetera. But what stood out was that 8 patrolmen would have to be eliminated, okay? What's worse is that this showed up the following morning in the newspaper. I'll read you the first sentence. Police Chief Patrick Sullivan told selectmen yesterday he would need to trim 8 officers from his police force if the town imposes a 10% budget cut in 2011. I had a woman, in addition to the 20 emails/phone calls, come to my house, like 5'0" I don't know who she was, pointing her finger at me and giving me hell for having made a motion to fire 8 police officers. Fortunately, I had already printed this, and I calmed her down enough to come in and sit down with a pencil. And when she left my house after looking at this, she was still mad. But she's mad at the police chief now. So I looked at this number. 8 police officers. The police chief attributed $389,000 as the cost for those 8 officers. That breaks down to $48,600 per officer. We all know it's in the 80 range. Okay, you guys discussed it last
We
time.
talked it last night.
8 officers cost us over $600,000, not 300 and some odd. There's no way that a 10% reduction would mean 8 officers would be laid off. But the public now thinks that might be the case. So I took these numbers and I plugged them into this sheet, which I will also send you, okay? And I took all the other items that, in addition, the chief proposed would have to be eliminated, and I left them in the budget. I left the school crossing guards in the budget. I left the crime prevention programs in the budget. And instead, I plugged in the real cost for an officer, which is $80,000. And it turns out that leaving everything in here other than a $13,000 amount for a part-time janitor, and a vacant position for a patrolman, if we eliminate no officers, we're already at almost 3% below the current budget. If you were to reduce patrolmen by 1, you're at 5.5%. 2 puts you at over 8. So if we decided, just theoretically, to reduce our police staff from 33 to 32, it's a 5.5% reduction in the budget right off the top. There's no way that this number of 8 reductions is realistic. And I'm surprised how many people called when they saw this, because they think a 10% reduction would result. We don't know if any officers would ever be removed, because we haven't even seen the police budget yet. But this, I mean, you know as well as I do, the number's inaccurate.
No, I think that became apparent, last night was, when we talked about it, it was, and I don't know if it was quite close to 80, but it seemed it was definitely
It was
close.
76
It was closer to 80
something
than
to
it was to 40 or something like that, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not, it's the wages, it's uniforms, it's training, it's other things.
That's not included in
And I
the
have to
80.
get, the other thing is, I believe we have 30 sworn, not 33, but I'll double check that
Okay.
one as well. And I did you get a copy of that request I sent to Sue via email, just for that? That'll also let us know the personnel.
What I wanted to ultimately suggest, and this came from a couple of people who talked to me, okay? First of all, I'll send the chief's presentation to all of you here.
You got it? Okay.
And I'll send my worksheet to all of you, and anybody in the audience or anybody who's watching that would like to get a copy of the chief's presentation, I'll be happy to send it. I'm in the book. Some of the people who contacted me made a suggestion that the public needs to be better informed on what this committee is doing. They need to know when we make an adjustment to a budget, they need to know which lines we adjusted, and in addition, they need to know which ones we didn't. For example, last year we made adjustments to the school budget. Nobody touched the teacher line, yet after those reductions, there was public mention by the school board and in the paper that we're gonna have to reduce teachers. But we never touched those lines. So it was suggested to me that perhaps we have a budget, right? Don't we have a couple of $1,000 budget? Could we do, after we do our work and we come up with our adjustments to the town and the school, could we do a bulk mailing to the registered voters and cite to them exactly where we adjusted and cite our reasons why?
Put it on the website.
Yeah.
The website, there's a lot of
Well, here's.
A lot of people don't
on the
have the
website, and I would volunteer my time to put it on the web.
We have had a couple of $1,000, and I believe last year we reduced it from 2,500 down to 2,000, and we were getting very close to expending the whole thing for all of the minutes we were taking.
Oh, that's what we spend it on,
And we
okay.
spend it pretty much on minute taker.
Wanna work for free, Joanne?
Where's our nameplates?
Yeah, and no nameplates or things of that nature, so to do a mailing,
Pages and pages and pages.
we would have to put some
He's waiting for the check.
somewhat significant dollars back in.
Okay, so that's an expensive proposition, huh?
Well, you figure you get a piece of paper, depends on how you get it. If you do a trifold paper, throw a piece of stamp on it, and send it out. How many households do we have? I mean, I don't know those parameters, but.
If I was to volunteer my time to put the numbers together at the end of the process, town would put this up, I presume?
Yeah.
But the problem with that guy is my father-in-law doesn't have internet, my
I know.
neighbor Lottie doesn't have internet.
But you do.
Okay, so
And you would
do I
love
run an
to print
extension
that
cord
out.
over there?
You could print it out for them. Talk it, verbalize it.
Yeah.
Flyer right before election day.
They do, don't they?
John.
When does that go out? Is it before deliberative, or?
But we don't
It's
put,
after,
but we
isn't it?
don't post the actual budget in it.
would cost you a
It
fortune.
would be, it's,
Yeah, you guys do that too, right? You send out a,
Do it in the same one as
Yeah,
them.
They
It's
do
all-
it,
it's the
they
same
do
one.
it inside the one, and they have their own little verbiage based on the warrant article, which if I had my way, we would have a budget committee comment in there, and then it wouldn't always say the
Right.
same thing. But in order to do what you're suggesting, Guy, this committee would have to make recommended adjustments on specific line items, not at the MS7 and MS27 levels.
but we arrive at the MS27 levels and the MS7 levels by looking at the individual lines.
Correct,
And
but when the
discussing them
motions,
and,
but when the motions are made, in
Mhm.
order to enter it into the record, they would have to be made, you can do it as an MS7 total, which include this subtotal, from here,
Okay.
here, here, here.
I would agree with Guy. I mean, Guy and I have agreed and we've disagreed on things. But I think in terms of trying to let the voters know where they want to, how they want to make a decision, it is abundantly more transparent, in my opinion,
Yeah.
for this body to say, okay, we disagree with the Board of Selectmen or the school board, and here's where. We think that this particular item should be cut, this one may be increased where they
Right.
didn't, and here is the differences, to
Right.
me, that is, much
some of
more.
some of the people who got a hold of me, and I'm talking about some prominent residents in town, had no clue that items we talked about earlier, the plotter, the GPS unit, the budget committee had said no to that, but they were bought anyways. And they had no clue that that could happen.
Right. Wait, it's a
Because
bo-
they're
they
bottom
do-
line budgets.
It's a bottom line budget, though.
Some people
Please-
think
please
a
note
bottom
that
line budget
Sue
is
said
something
that.
we made up.
It
It's
is.
not.
But people don't understand that.
They just don't know how the
It's a-
process works.
Correct, and it would help us at the public hearing to try to do that. And believe it or not, I almost heard you saying you volunteering to put those numbers together for the public hearing. That's what I was really.
I thought I said public website.
There is
But
There is a
yeah, sure.
stipend that comes along with that, right?
That's right.
I'll do it for nothing.
That's right, the same thing I've gotten for the last,
Yeah.
It's just, they've got to know,
it's the inside of that donut.
I have a question.
not the whole.
Christie.
But even if you did take a specific line,
Mm-hmm.
it's still ultimately a
Yes.
bottom line budget, and they can do whatever they want with that
Right.
line.
True.
But that's the process.
But if the residents know that
This
you
is
said,
why we're doing what
you
we're
said,
doing.
okay, buy
Yeah, sure.
$30,000 worth of history books, and those books aren't bought because something else was bought, they can't, first of all, it makes the work that we do transparent. We did not reduce the transportation line, period, or we did not reduce the sports program lines. It makes it difficult thereafter for a governing body to publicly say, well, geez, our budget's been reduced, so we're gonna have to cut the sports programs, lay off teachers, and, well, wait a minute. This committee didn't touch those lines. So now the onus is on the governing body to explain to the public, why is it when the teacher lines, for example, are not cut, that you're saying you have to lay off teachers? People don't understand that where we make reductions is irrelevant. Money can be moved around. So if we show them, we went through line A, B, C, D, we reduced here, we may even increase there, but when the dust settles, here's the budget, it goes to the governing bodies, we all know they can do what they want. But the public's not aware of this, or a surprising number of them, I found out last week, are not aware of it. So the more transparent the process is, then the better educated the voter is. And then they can question the governing bodies. How come you have a plotter that the budget committee said no to? Because the law allows it.
Right, and I would say that, I agree with you. On the flip side of it, when a commodity or something, goes up in price, and we have to take it from another line to cover something
You
that's
have to be able to
essential,
do it.
you've gotta be able, so it's just like anybody in their own home, it's like, yeah, you might budget for certain, whether it be food or entertainment or your taxes, and you might have to take money from one line to pay for something else, even though when you started your budget off, or if something fails in your house, an appliance, you gotta do something, whether you gotta put
Exactly.
it on a credit card or pay or switch your money around.
So the governing bodies, they need that freedom,
Right.
of course, but the
Right.
public needs to know how this works and where the allocations were versus where it was ended up being spent.
And I can tell you a lot of that takes the cooperation of department heads, principals, SAU personnel, because in order for a budget committee to understand all the intricacies of what those expenditures are, it becomes difficult. My entire mantra has always been, the budget committee is the one thinking of the tax rate and how much money can be afforded. That is in the statute what the purpose of the budget committee is. We don't start from what a program's needed. We start from the other side. It's the governing bodies that say, what kind of programs and services do I need for the people and the students? This is what it's gonna cost. And together, hopefully, we can come to an agreement. That is the best process. And I like what I'm hearing to see if we can't talk about that. Because there's been a couple of years where we have not made official motions included in the motions, the thought process to get to the numbers.
I mean, I personally would feel a lot more comfortable going that route. Bill?
What I wanted to say was, the bottom line budget in terms of when they are actually spending the money is out here. All this goings on with we're gonna have to cut this or that is done before the March vote.
I'm
So-
listening, yeah.
Okay. You know, it's fine and dandy if they go off and buy a plotter or whatever like that afterwards, you know, because they went out and did that way down. They're not in the budget cycle, they're not in the decision cycle, they're in the implementation cycle. Let's use those two words. We're in a decision cycle when we're talking, you know, when the voters are reading the stuff in the newspaper and all that. You know, that a board comes in and says they're gonna have to do something like this to meet what we're laying in. I think, yes, we need to be very, you know, somewhat more specific in what our reductions, where we're coming through our reductions. But I think that would help to slow down this whole thing with some of the use of very classic emotional issues. You know, we're gonna cut sports, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, when we, as the budget committee, that was not our intention. But to fire up the voters, to get them to come into the deliberative session and to get them to, in March, to go for a higher number because, oh my God, we're gonna cut the sports. The budget committee didn't say cut sports. That's all I'm saying. We have, I do agree, we need to be more specific in terms of what we're cutting, but we need to have that teeth in it that the public knows that they're making decisions counter to what the budget committee brought in.
I mean, I said I fully support it, because if there's going, and there will be disagreement, and that's just natural, I mean, there always has been. But I'd rather, as a selectman's rep, if there's a proposed cut that the Board of Selectmen does not endorse, I'd rather have a discussion or even a debate over the pros and cons of that particular cut. And then, you know, this committee will vote on it, and then ultimately at a public hearing or deliberative session, here's the reasons why this was endorsed by the Budget Committee. Here's the reasons why this was not endorsed by the Board of Selectmen or the governing body. And then let the
chips fall where they may.
Exactly.
The voters will decide.
Exactly.
Right.
Because, I mean, you know, you folks have your job. My job and Sue's job is to put forth a budget or advocate a budget which we think is in the best interest of the town. And that's always a moving target, just like your job is a moving target. But when we have a disagreement, it's just, I think it's just better just to lay out the reasons for it, and then whatever the voters decide, you know, we have to execute. That's our job. You know, we must execute with what the voters, whatever they give us. So I like this.
Yeah, John's had his hand up for a while. And I see a couple people, go ahead.
Thank you. It's just a comment, Guy, thank you for saying what you just said. I think the chief should be ashamed of what is in the paper.
It's an error, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm sure it is. I pray it is. I think we should have transparency more. But then on the, what Scott said was about the other towns, you're gonna have a paper to try to compare us. I'm not a huge fan of that. And I thought I'd just comment on that, and the reason why is if you have a town that has no fiscal control, which there are a lot of them out there, then we're comparing with that. So even though we're down here and they're up here, well, look, see, we can grow up. Well, they're very fiscal out of control up here, so, you know, I don't wanna compare to that. It's like comparing New Hampshire to New Jersey. I mean, there's a huge mess down there. And, you know, so I'm just not a fan of that. Or if we listed the high and low of the towns. So let's say Hanover, which I don't know if, you know, they run their budget here, but Woodsville, which I do know, is way up here, you know, especially with the school. I mean, they spend a tremendous amount per student, and they got some of the lowest scores. That was years ago. I don't know if it's still the same case. So, you know, I'm just not a big fan of the comparing to other towns. I want to be the best run town fiscally, right to the dollar. And hopefully other towns will look at us and say, hey, if they can do it, why can't we? And then,
I guess, how do you measure that? There has to be some metric to do that. That's
well,
my only-
businesses do it all the time.
Well, let's not get into a debate on the merits of it, but that's your opinion, and that's
Yes,
cool.
yeah,
Okay.
so I just wanted to throw that out.
All right.
Thank you.
And I got Kathy and then John.
Well, talking about giving the community more information, I'm definitely 100% for that. I think that that would stop a lot of the emails that we do receive where people unfortunately might not be informed to what we actually do, or to have the information that they need to make a reasonable decision. I mean, I'm sure that other people, and I can see other names on here, received an email this evening that starts out, I am saddened to think that the Budget Committee does not feel that our children are worth our investment. And it goes on to talk about textbooks. Well, I can't remember ever, you know, a line coming up at textbooks, and if they had a good idea or gave us a reason why they needed textbooks, I don't remember sitting there with the red marker saying we're not buying textbooks. So I think that most definitely this would help our community understand exactly what we do, how we do it, and why we did it, or why we made that recommendation. You know, I think that it should be more of a trust and more of a team, you know, atmosphere. You know, that's just my thought process. I just think that, I don't, sometimes they think that we're in 100% control. I mean, that, how dare you, you know, take that away? And it's, you know, it's a bottom line budget. We can recommend, and that is our job. And hence, that's why, you know, I believe that a lot of us decided we wanted to be part of the Budget Committee, so, thanks.
Mr. Dillon?
I think my main comment is that, you know, we're talking about disinformation or the voters, the citizens not having a lot of clarity, a lot of information about the budget. I think one thing that would go a long, long way is just put the budgets online. You know, we got a $19 million town budget, 30+ million school budget. You know, you can put out flyers and reference line items or MS7s and 27s, but you know, even if you're referencing lines you're cutting, you know, that it happens within a context of other line items that are not being cut, and it's impossible. I mean, these are huge budgets. You know, I think if the Budget Committee partly represents citizens as taxpayers, then, you know, why not give taxpayers more information? Put it on the web. Let them look at it. Let them look at the Excel sheets. Let them look at line by line. Let them analyze it to their heart's content. Write op-ed pieces. Write us informed emails. It's easy and cheap to do in 2010, right?
Is it online? Isn't the budgets online?
I don't think so.
No, they're not online.
The MS
The MS7, MS
Right.
27,
yeah.
all those, which are at the macro level, they're not at the
Yeah.
detail level. What John is, intimating is to put the Excel spreadsheets that we get, the replication of the books on the website. I mean, from my perspective, they are work in process, but they're public documents.
I intend to put them up on the web.
Yeah, so, I mean, they
Saturday.
should be,
That
I-
seems easy
Yeah.
to do.
yeah, so either in a PDF style or an Excel style or whatever. The only thing that we need to be conscious of is when we give a manipulable, you know what I mean with the word, if you can manipulate the numbers by putting stuff on the web, we have to make sure who controls the actual, and you have to be very careful when if someone would come up with a printout and say, this is what it is. You gotta say, be very careful, look at it and say, is this the original document that's been manipulated? So that's the only caution, but it shouldn't stop us from being able to avail the community of the numbers. Yes, Scott?
You know, I think the things do get emotional, you know, there's no doubt about it, but again, going back to what Guy said, I think if it remains at the, you know, going through this thing and where's the cut gonna be in the specific line, what's the rationale for it, this board takes a vote, and then the chips fall where they may, I do prefer that. In terms of talking, you know, looking at John, what you mentioned about, you know, putting things in, I try to put things in context, and I know that, you know, perhaps, I understand what you're saying, completely. You don't wanna work towards, just because the per pupil cost is X, that we have, that, you know, we should be proud of the fact that we're giving a quality education in Goffstown, and it's $2,000 or $3,000 less than the state average. That's something to be proud about. And we shouldn't work towards just simply increasing the numbers without getting quantifiable results, you know, for that. But it does help me when I look at metrics such as how many police officers do we have per 1,000 citizens, and those types of things do help. And I'm not saying that I make decisions like that, but it puts me in the world of trying to analyze some of the data, because without that, I don't know. Just like many of you talked last year about, you know, what are the economic indicators, you know, going on. There's a lot of discussion last year about, you know, high unemployment. It's discussed about right now in the country. I'm trying to get some data to drill down to the Goffstown level. I think today came out in the paper that the state, that it slightly tweaked down a little, ticked down on the state level. But just try to, again, I know we can't compare ourselves to Nevada or California or Alabama, but what can we see, what can we glean from just comparing ourselves to comparable, you know, types of communities? Do we have a bigger police force or a smaller police force? Do we have a bigger?
Information,
The more, it doesn't hurt. That's why that DRA site, it does give you a little bit of some assistance. And because I looked at that today, and I'm trying to figure out, do we give more elderly exemptions than, say, other communities of similar size? Do we give out more veterans credits? You know, I'm just trying to see what is different between us. Do we have a lot more land in current use?
Yeah.
You know, we already know that we don't have that much in terms of our residential commercial, but again, it just tries to help, it helps you make the more data. To me, I find it helps me frame things a little better. So, and that's what I'll share whatever thing I sent Guy, that DRA website, and actually I can, if you are going to send it
I'll
up to
forward it to
everybody.
everybody.
There's a ton of information on there. They've done a nice job with it.
Thank you.
I think we've had some good conversations here about budget process, where we're gonna go. It's segued nicely from actually talking about what your departments or school are thinking. It's about 9:15. Does anyone have any other things they wanna talk about their own departments and the conversations you've been having with them on the coming budget, or do you wanna save it for Saturday? It's up to you. John?
It's up to you guys if you want me to just be maybe 4 3/4 minutes on the school.
Go ahead.
I mean, only because we're so far away from the school. It's gonna be in November, correct?
Go ahead. No. Yes.
November 13th.
Okay, November 13th, 9 o'clock in the morning. It's been changed from the email sent out and the meeting minutes of last month. They're a little older there, and They like to sleep longer.
There or here?
Here, you
Here.
requested it here.
We will have it
I did.
here.
Yes, you did.
Do
You said the acoustics were terrible at the media center.
They
and
are.
are.
You
They
can't
are.
hear. It's true.
But we will
I'm not
have-
making that up.
I know.
We can have it here. You said we're borrowing tables for this coming Saturday from some of the other places.
School have to bring their own tables. I'm only kidding. Do you have to?
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll try to arrange.
Well, we'll try to figure it
gotta
out. I
make-
know we got a couple of things here, but if we need to, I need to make sure that we can accommodate ourselves if possible. Go, Mr. Burt.
All right, thank you. Like I said, most of this is from Stacy Buckley, when she got up and had her speech. She is gonna remove $250,000 from the Barnard Park track, to do the track around. And what she's thinking is she wants feedback from, I think, the school board and other departments that,
What is the basis for your relationship when you're saying she's gonna take out?
well, she's removing the
Yeah, but
$250,000.
Where are you removing it from where? Don't forget, we haven't seen anything, so
I
I
believe
don't know
from
the basis for
the
your comment.
future 2011, 2012 school budget.
That was prepared by whom?
I'm assuming the school board.
Don't assume that.
Okay.
No, it comes
No,
from
we
the-
saw it
School
for the
board, the
first
governing
time
body has
when you
not
did.
done
That's
anything
true,
yet.
yeah.
So I'm.
All right, I'm assuming
presuming-
from her, from the what is it, the SAU then?
No, it wouldn't even be the SAU, I don't think. I'm thinking
Okay, then.
someone somewhere said, we have a track that we use, and if it's Barnard, that's town
Probably in
maintained.
Yeah,
the
that's-
school, high school.
No.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was, it,
Huh?
No.
No?
Owned by the town.
The track is owned by the town but maintained by the school district.
yes,
And it needs
because you
repairs.
guys use it for your
And
meets.
they wanna resurface it for $250,000.
And they-
What is being looked at right now by another committee
Yes.
is what our facilities need to look like.
Well, they want to move it to the school possibly with new lights at the football field, with all new lights and grass, new sod down,
Great.
with the new track.
Yeah, sure you will. What is being discussed is bringing that track facility back to the high school for the simple reason that at Barnard, we can't do what's needed to do for the school
You
to
need
hold track
spikes and you
meets.
can't
Yeah.
use spikes and.
The town won't let our athletes wear proper footwear on that, even though we maintain it.
Ask it again.
It's a long
Ask the
story.
town again. New director of Parks and
Yeah,
Rec.
I know. So
Where?
it's
Where?
Where are you gonna put it?
Around the football field.
Oh, okay.
So that's
That's
what I'm
been
talking about when you're
suggested by
saying,
that
so someone,
Okay.
someone requested to do that, and you're saying that they're pulling that out. See, one of the things I'm gonna have a hard time for a report like this,
Yes.
is I have no basis, and I have absolutely
Okay.
no idea, and it's not making a whole lot of,
All
Well,
right.
that has been in CIP, I think, for,
oh, that's a CIP
it
item.
might be,
Well,
I'm
then
not
it is.
100%.
With that kind of
With that
money,
it
that's
should
gotta
have
be.
been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll skip to the things that I think that I can
Okay.
say is the light bus will be coming back next year at a $24,000 cost.
They're gonna budget for that.
Yes.
Okay.
They're budgeting for that. She doesn't want any programs cut, which, I support that. I believe we should not cut any programs. She said, first graders are only first graders once, and if we take that from them, then they will lose out, which I don't understand what that comment was on the budget part, but she was pretty adamant about it. But then, so the 2011 school budget, what is coming down to us is gonna be $35,642,948, an increase of $1,481,787. That's a
What's that increase?
$1,481,787
Over the current,
over the current budget right now. That's a 2.28% increase. And then
Huh?
what she did is she had, what?
that's it? They've,
No, it's not done,
okay, that's what I
but
thought.
don't expect major additional reductions.
No, I'm just, my impression was that, from you, John, that they was done, but it's not, didn't make
That's the-
sense, okay.
Yeah,
Superintendent's proposed budget.
yeah.
Okay.
And what the proposed budget is on the salaries is an increase of $1,510,000.56, or 9.2%.
Now, how is that,
No,
no, how can the,
I think what they did is they cut out elsewhere. They cut other stuff
to,
to accommodate.
Insurance with that?
okay, 1.5, so basically, it's $30,000 less than a total increase of salaries and benefits, or whatever that is. I mean,
Yeah, that's just salaries.
Do you have an
there's gotta
electronic
be
copy of that?
taxes and stuff.
I don't, but I can get you this. The benefit increase, which includes health, dental, life, disability, FICA, unemployment, retirement, is gonna go from 6.8 million approximately to 8.7 million. Almost a $2 million increase next year in the budget proposed.
But that's what, that's an estimate of what, 27 point, what's the,
Almost 28%
what's the
increase.
budgeted increase for benefits, for health insurance?
I think it's in there.
We don't have the guaranteed maximum yet.
No, we haven't got that yet.
No, so that's what I'm saying, what number was
Yeah, I
thrown
think
in
it's
there?
17.
Oh,
17 and a
healthcare
half.
is right here. The healthcare insurance, is 17.25%.
So that's what they're putting in, and we had something, and we got something at the town at 6 and 7%.
Right.
So we might be 10% too high, possibly, that's
Well,
just a
no,
number.
By the time the 13th rolls around, we should have our guaranteed maximum.
Okay.
Yeah, the dental's gonna go up 5.5%. Retirement is, teachers increase from 8% to 9.77. The state is gonna reduce their contribution. So that means, we're gonna have to pay more. Luckily, the fuel went down, propane went
No,
down.
fuel,
Oh, I'm sorry,
budgeting more for fuel.
yes, yeah, there is budget more, yeah. Yeah, and also with the propane, I was read that backwards. Teacher's contract expires in 2012.
And there are no increases in our proposed budget for support staff, because that's in negotiation.
But the school budget, so that's why I just wanted to throw that out, is gonna go up 1.5 million.
Christie?
What about any additional revenues coming in? For example, the pay-to-play? Is that,
It's not been adopted.
I didn't hear anything on that.
okay, what, like, the senior parking, is that still in there?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
that's $100.
Okay. Any other additional revenues from,
Not that I've heard.
Mr. Chairman, so can I ask, nothing's been adopted yet, right?
Right.
My understanding is it will not be adopted until November 3rd at the school board meeting.
That's right.
So this is just what was proposed last night, John?
Proposed, yes,
Is
and
that a PowerPoint that was shared?
Yes.
With-
it's
it was a
all-
PowerPoint. And she said, Stacy said that it will be up on the website.
Great.
I don't know, do you know when? Yeah, I don't know what day it'll be up, but she said it will be up on the website. And, pretty much that's it.
Anyone else want to share what they've been talking to the department heads or principals or whatever, in anticipation of where we're going? John?
Yeah, so speaking with Stacy and Ray regarding SAU liaison meeting, I think their big question to us is, how does the budget committee want to proceed with November 13th and the Saturday, their presentations? What do we expect, if anything specific? I think they're presuming to start with maybe a 45-minute presentation of a summary of the adopted budget. So what sounded like maybe a 40-page version summary, a presentation on that, although I think they're planning to give us ahead of time, hopefully 5 or 6 days ahead of
No,
time.
you're getting it on the 5th, the full budget.
So that would be, if we get it on the 5th, that's plenty of days before the 13th, so that'll be great. But I think they want to know, do we have any suggestions on how we hope they will proceed at that Saturday meeting?
I personally would like to see some degree of trending, 5 years. What was budgets and revenues 5 years ago? What is it looking like now? The big thing is always 70% of that budget is salary and benefits, and I'd like to see that. What picture does that look like? You know, and then I don't know. I like to also hear, you know, some of the positives myself. I mean, what you know, you were mentioning before about this Concord Co-op thing, and there is some nice positives that can come out of that, and we'll see some decreases in our fuel costs. You know, what are we doing? I hear anecdotally that we're doing a lot of more programs in-house, especially on autism, and that we're having some good success with that, and that's quote-unquote saving us money. I mean, I don't really know a whole lot about it, so, you know, rather than just hearing one side, I'd like to hear, you know, what are some of the initiatives that are actually working, whether it be special ed, whether it be energy efficiency, you know, what are some of the ideas that, you know, are there any ideas that are, you know, think outside of the box? And we talked a little bit before about textbooks, and I'll just throw this out. You're
anti-textbook.
I'm anti-textbook. I think they're very expensive. I think they're very heavy. Most kids don't bring them home. They look like the USA Today, and I think we can do a lot with computers, you know, and a lot more with that. And you know, our textbook budget is kind of expensive. So what are some of the ideas in which we could, you know, streamline, you know, some of these things? Are there opportunities for us to have interdistance learning, which I know we do a little bit of that? You know, are there different educational delivery systems out there? You know, I mean, there's that traditional, the teacher is in front of the student, but are there, you know, online classes? I mean, there's a new virtual online academy or something like that where students can take classes online. I heard it's pretty challenging too. This is for high school, you know. What opportunities are there than just what we're,
Pay as you throw.
you know, doing? Well, you know, you mentioned the pay-to-play thing, the pay-as-you-throw. I mean, what other alternatives, you know, are out there, whether they're controversial or not?
Right.
You know, shouldn't we look at that?
Mhm.
Yes.
Most definitely.
You know, so, and if it's a good idea, then it's a good idea. If it's a bad idea, or if it's a controversial idea, then let people weigh in on that, you know? So that to me is the big thing, is the trending, and I also like to see the revenue piece, because I think it's a roller coaster on the revenue side, and that's what's really, you know, we went last year from having a discussion about a $3 and something increase in the tax rate, and it ended up being $1.24. Again, because of federal fund. That's one of the things, and John, if you get elected, this whole thing of these roller coaster rides that we're on, I mean, I think as elected officials, and I don't want to speak for you, Sue, but I just assume, give me something stable that's predictable, as opposed to this, you know, this echocardiogram that we deal with, you know, up and down.
Yeah, I
you
support
know. You know, that's kind of what I, you know, would like to see. And then traditionally, you give us the student populations, right?
Right.
We're getting that. We're getting student-teacher ratios. We're getting some of that data, right? We get that?
Yeah, most of it is in that presentation that John brought in with him. A lot of that stuff is in there. A lot of that stuff, what's in there is how Goffstown's $9,000 average cost per pupil rates against the other districts in the state.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I don't have a copy of it, but there was you read the HIPPO, anybody read that? But a year ago, the HIPPO did some analysis, and they took the cost per pupil, and they did some analysis on test scores, and Goffstown actually rated pretty good.
Yes, we did. We do even
And
better
I don't
now.
know what metrics are in place, but it was going back to what John Burt said, is that, you know, it's something that, you know, I don't think we should strive to be the town that spends the most on anything, but are we getting great value? Are we getting the most value? And I think that's what our goal should be. I mean, personally, is, are we getting the most value for the tax dollar? You know, and if there's any creative ways of trying to get more value out of it, great.
Yeah, Goffstown High School did extremely well. 95th percentile in 2 categories and 92 in the 3rd category in the testing. And what's in there, you'll see the graphic that shows how much Goffstown spends and how much the schools that did better than us.
Right, and that's the good,
spend.
and that's the
And there's a huge difference.
right, and that's the exceptional piece of it. Then there's the pretty good piece at Maple, there's the at Bartlett, and there's the at Mountain View,
Right.
which has to get dealt with too, so.
Exactly.
Aren't Bartlett and Maple both schools in need of improvement?
Those are many times based upon subgroups, which in many cases could be special education. So if a regular education student is expected to gain 10 basis points from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, a special ed kid is expected to go from those 10 same basis points without, necessarily an increased, longer school day, school week, school year.
A few years ago, Goffstown High School got designated a school in need of improvement. And when we analyzed
Was
all the
one,
data, it was one
one-
question on one special ed kid's test. It made us a school in need of improvement.
Okay, well, it's gonna be borderline
No.
regardless, though.
But it designated school in need of improvement by the
And
state.
then that bar gets raised every year until 2014, and unfortunately, every single year with No Child Left Behind, more and more and more school districts get on it, because the bar keeps on raising, and, I don't know, that has its own issues, I'm not a big fan of that, but.
Well, I guess the only thing I would say is we got the SAU budget last week. It's up a little bit.
Actually, it's down.
No, it's up a little.
It's gone, from what I can tell, 1579867, I haven't checked this, but down to 1554282, which is for Goffstown, we were getting a 71, according to the sheet, 71.465% total share. Our share is down to 70.94%. So last year was 1129052, and that number rings a bell.
I'm talking about the entire SAU budget.
Yeah,
I'm
this
not
is the
talking
entire
about
SAU
Goffstown's
budget.
share.
1579,867 was the current fiscal year, and according to this, 1554,282 is what they're proposing, according to this top sheet.
I don't know where you got that.
I got this from the SAU meeting.
Right there.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, the SAU budget is up. We've instructed them to come back with a level funded budget, which we will do hopefully on November 7th. Dates are getting hard to find for everybody.
Okay, now I'm looking at the detail, which is $24,413 too high from what you're saying. So
That's it.
this detail page does not equal the summary page.
Okay,
So we will have to go and dig and find out what the difference is. So it's competing information. Interesting, isn't it? Were you done, John?
I was.
You have anything else, Sue, or? So you
Nope,
basically
just
told them
tomorrow
come
night
back
we're
with
getting
a level funded budget, and when's the next meeting?
wait, for what? SAU?
Yeah, with
I
SAU.
said November 7th.
I must have still been talking.
Yeah, could be. It's in Goffstown,
SAU, Sue, is November 7th?
yes.
Yeah, they rotate around.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were in
11/7
Dunbarton last week, we'll be
at
in
the
Goffstown.
media center.
Then we'll
What
up
time?
in New Boston.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
And the 7th is what day of the week?
I hope it's a.
I think it's
Sunday.
Tuesday.
Second's on Tuesday.
November 7th is a Tuesday, because Thursday the 9th we're meeting.
November 7th
November 7th is a Sunday.
is a Sunday.
Monday.
No,
Yeah, because the
Let me get my book.
second is Tuesday, which
November
is election
1st
day.
is
Oh, I got the book
Monday.
right here.
No,
I
November,
start
my
November
book.
9th is a Tuesday. That's-
my dates. Okay, let's see.
So the 9th, we're having deliberations on that, and I wrote Thursday.
I'm
on
sorry,
the
it's
chart.
November 8th,
November,
Monday.
Monday. Okay, 11/8 Monday, that's good.
And then we're, December 7th, we're in New Boston to finalize the budget.
Say that again, 12,
12/7,
finalize in New Boston,
right.
7 PM, okay.
Sue, were you gonna say what was happening at tomorrow's school board meeting?
Yeah, just that we're gonna hear the Mountain View and high school proposed budgets for next year.
And Chairman Cloutier,
Yes, sir.
while you have your date book out, hopefully, I have the 28th to be here at 6:30.
You're gonna be here by yourself.
No, that's what it
No,
says
that's
on
what
here.
it is, 28th at 6:30.
You did put that on the bottom of your
I thought-
meeting agenda.
Yes, he
But
did.
that said the 23rd.
No, it's a
Dan, it's
Saturday.
right. It was next to the Roxanne Hunt.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, on the bottom you put 6:30.
Of November?
No, no, no.
October 28th and November 4th. We're supposed to be here at 6:30.
Yes, that is correct.
That's what he just asked you.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry, dude.
And that is true then?
Yes.
Yes,
So I
but we're
will be
meeting at, that's a Thursday,
Yes.
and it's gonna start at 6:30
And end at 10.
End at 10.
by 10.
Correct.
Not
Yes.
end at 10, by
By
10.
10.
Right.
Now, when the school starts a meeting at 6:30, they always get pizza.
No,
No,
they
we
don't.
don't always get.
Oh,
that.
6, I'm sorry, it's 6 o'clock. But the
Haven't
me-
had pizza once this year.
I
Oh,
think we
really?
should start a trend.
Yeah.
We got
Alright.
much
By
more.
meeting at
But,
6:30, we're not gonna have dinner.
Then the 4th will be 6:30 to 10, and the 13th will be the school at 9.
Right, on the agenda, it says Thursday, November
Hamburgers,
9th.
you
It's
can
not
get
Thursday, it's
hamburgers sent
Tuesday,
over?
November 9th. Okay?
Okay.
That's a
That's where I was
mistype.
confused.
What?
We could talk to them.
And then Saturday, it's 9 AM on November 13th. That says 8:30 on here, but talking to Sue, the school board would rather meet at 9.
Okay, so 6:30.
So you don't, oh, okay.
On the
Matt and
9th.
I'll bring it over then.
Yes.
We won't tell Christie.
So let me go through this
Thank you for
again.
bringing it over.
The next meeting is this Saturday.
Thing you made.
Members, the next meeting is this Saturday here, 9 AM.
Great.
Then, the following week, on Thursday evening, 6:30 here.
That's when we're doing
And the
it.
following week on Thursday here, again, 6:30. If this room is taken, we will meet in room 107, okay? Then the following week on Tuesday, it'll be at 6:30. Then we have the holiday on November 11th, and then the Saturday after the holiday at 9 o'clock here to meet with the school board for that presentation. And then our regular meeting on the 16th, Tuesday here at 7.
Okay.
Do we need to bring, food and refreshments for Saturday?
No,
I don't know.
No?
Not this Saturday.
Saturday.
I don't know about the school Saturday. I have not been informed, and we'll have some meetings in between that will get some of that information, so I'll be able to tell you. How's that?
In all seriousness, does anybody have any, if there's any special dietaries thing, can you just let me know? And, I mean, I don't wanna, I can't make promises, but I can certainly try.
I only like Poland Springs water. Just kidding.
Well, I mean, I don't know if somebody is
I know what you meant.
The
I was just
Pepsi
giving you a
Coke
hard
issue.
time.
vegetarian or something.
Yeah,
you know.
Pepsi, Coke,
We're Coke people.
Sugar drinks.
Yeah.
sugar drinks, yes, especially if you want us to stay awake. No dose.
Are there further individuals wanted to talk about budgets in their discussion with department heads or whatever?
No, I
Is there
gave
any
you
other business that you guys wanna chat about before we adjourn?
one. And,
Nope.
Then I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. that we
I
adjourn.
saw Bill's hand, but I will give you the second, Dick. How's that? All right. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous, and that's 10-0-0 because Sue is there. Thank you, Andrew.